Welcome to Armchair Expert, experts on expert.
Oh, wow, that was the kind of cheerleading move you did.
Thank you. I'm Randy Shepard, and I'm joined by Lily Padme.
Oh.
It's an honor to announce our guest today, one of our radical thinkers.
Yes.
Michael Lewis. Michael is a best-selling author and podcaster. His books, The Fifth Risk, Flash Boys, The Big Short, read it, loved it, Moneyball, The Blind Side. He has a awesome podcast out currently. You could listen immediately, called Against the Rules. And this season is all about this pretty troubling gambling epidemic among young men.
Yeah.
And we talk at great length about that, in addition to, all of his other great work.
I mean, this person wrote Moneyball and The Big Short, two of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. And we've left one out, which is this great Wall Street book that started it all.
Liar's Poker.
Liar's Poker.
Yeah.
Good job.
I'm editing it.
But also you've become a real brain trust.
Thank you, but I can't take credit for that. I was editing it this morning.
Okay. Okay. All right, please enjoy Michael Lewis. We'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Happy Egg. Crack open happy. Look for the yellow carton at a store near you. And now, on with the show.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
I just walked around the corner to your local pharmacy, a la Boots Pharmacy, and he said, "What are you doing in our neighborhood?" And I said, "I'm doing Dax Shepard's podcast." And he goes, "I love that podcast. That guy's funny, and his wife's even funnier."
Oh, that's true.
That'll happen.
She's better looking. She's more talented.
Yeah.
I'm still having a great life in her shadow. There's still plenty of light over here.
You get enough attention.
I do. And the more she gets, the better for me.
Yes.
Yes. It's lovely. I'm like, that's right. Get a picture with her.
You know-
I'll hold the camera.
But also, you never walk into a dinner party and everybody just wants to talk to you, and that's good.
That's really good because I was on TV and had a girlfriend for 9 years. And it drove me mad that we would go places and people would be meeting her for the fifth time and introducing
remember
themselves.
her
I'm like,
name,
God, this fucking sucks for her. I don't know how she does this.
Yeah. And for you, it's like that doesn't make
No
for a
one's
happy-
really winning. Yeah.
No,
I'm like,
right.
well, this is miserable. You've just made this person I love feel very insignificant.
Right.
And I don't know how she's going to deal with this because I think it's going to just get worse for a while. I just read the book. I love it.
Oh, thanks.
So you have a circuitous path to writing, which is you are from New Orleans, yeah?
Yeah.
And you go to Princeton,
Yeah.
and you do art history. And when you started that major, had it not occurred to you there's no employment after? Like, I majored in anthro, but I knew I'll never be employed as an anthropologist.
But you probably had the same experience I did. You went into a class and you went, "Oh my God, this is interesting."
Yes.
And
I had the freedom to do that. A lot of people don't.
so I did too.
You did
and
too.
I not only had the freedom, I had a father who said, "Don't you dare waste your Princeton education trying to figure out what you're going to do for a living."
How to make money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he said, "Don't go study economics because you want to work on Wall Street or whatever, or that kind of stuff." He says, "Such a waste."
And your dad was a lawyer.
He was.
And does he fit the form of most lawyers where they absolutely hate their fucking job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He ran a law firm. He's still alive. He's still great. But he's
Good for you.
My parents are still living in the house I grew up in. I go back.
that's
I'm going to go back in
nice.
2 weeks.
You know you're going to live to 100. Like, what a freedom you
Well,
have.
knock on wood for you.
I still stay in my bedroom from when I
You
was
do?
6 years old. So I had not only the freedom, but also a dad who had said, "Don't screw it up by succumbing to this pressure." I knew that it wasn't like a path to fame and fortune, but I didn't know
But you
what
were
it
on
was.
fire for
I was
it.
so excited.
Yeah.
And just that I live for that feeling.
And you had a bit of focus on archaeology as well? No?
A little bit.
Yeah.
So it's you did some homework.
Well, I try to. I have a very easy job.
So I had to get out of Princeton, you have to write a thesis, and it's not trivial.
Yours was 160 pages. 190, 160, or
it was
190?
like 60,000 words. It's like a book.
No, it is, yeah.
It was narrow. I really cared about it.
Yeah.
And it was about the way Donatello used classical sources. And serendipitously, I had access to unpublished research about what Donatello would have seen. Like we know all kinds of stuff that's been dug up since then that he didn't know.
Okay.
So I could recreate the picture he had of what Romans and Greeks were doing.
Yeah.
And think about what he saw and how he used it in his sculpture.
Yeah.
And it had this feeling like I'm doing something no one's done before.
Yeah. So
And
exciting.
when I got so immersed in something, I became a different kind of student. I was a mediocre student when I had to do lots of shallow stuff.
Yeah.
When it was just deep dive and get it down on paper, I became excellent. And for the first time really in my academic career.
Right.
And I thought, oh, means I want to be an art historian. And that is when the archaeologist who supervised the project said, there are no jobs. You know, you're not going to.
Yeah. This is the most you're going to do.
No,
right
actually,
now,
in the thesis meeting, I must have been thinking, oh, I'm a good writer. Because I said to him, what did you think about the writing? He said, put it this way, never try to make a living at it. Like, you're not that good a writer. And that's where I was in my head when I got out of college. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And the professor says I'm not a very good writer. And he thought I was a thinker, which was funny. Because I never thought I had a thought. It was like I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
If you caught me there, age 21, graduating from Princeton, you'd have said, poor Michael, like he has no plan.
Yeah,
There's no plan.
He's directionless.
It's directionless. I mean, people have said, oh, he's charming. You know, he's charming and we like having him around you. I have a lot of friends who are going to be successful.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't have.
You might get invited to some fun barbecues.
Oh, definitely. That was never a problem. But it was like I captured some people's imagination, but no one saw use in me. Right. But I got in my head that, shit, if I'm not going to be an art historian, I'm going to write. I want to write books. I want to do that again.
So that started that early.
Yeah.
Okay, because my chronology for you do go get a job working for an art appraiser in New York or something, right?
Wildenstein. You know the Wildenstein Gallery?
I do not.
You know it because of the what they call it, the tiger lady or the lion lady who had all the plastic surgery. She was Jocelyn Wildenstein. She was the wife of the heir to the gallery. Oh. And I actually knew her or had met her. Yeah. I was the stock boy at Wildenstein. It was just like, get the pictures from the vaults and bring them out to show the clients. In this place, it might still be the world's most valuable private collection of art. When I was there, I mean, they had 64 Fragonards. They had 10 Cézannes no one had ever seen.
Oh, wow.
They'd started as Jewish rag merchants in the turn of the end of the late 1900s or late 1800s.
Yeah.
And on the streets of Paris would trade rags with the Impressionist painters. And then they smuggle all this stuff out. And
they got it
during
out.
World War II. There's a whole story about collaboration with the Germans to get their stuff out. So that stuff was in there, and I was the stock boy.
Okay, so I had a rare experience where I knew a dude through sobriety who was an art dealer, and he drove a Carrera GT. He had like 15 incredible cars. I went to his house. He had a Magritte hanging on the wall. He subsequently like was evading the law. What I found out is that whole world is like rife with con artists. There's got so many people that sell art they don't actually own. Like it's a very willy-nilly world, right? I feel like it needs an expose.
I've thought that for a long time, and that's more true of the contemporary art world, I think, than it is of the world of old master paintings or even the Impressionists. But still, it's sort of like there was a whole class of person who would come in and look at what might be a Raphael to say it was a Raphael. And they were paid by the gallery to determine what it was. Oh. And all the incentive was to say, yes. Right. All the incentive in the market is to say it is.
Yes.
I mean, you saw with this Leonardo that sold for $400 million 2 years ago. You must have seen this. This picture, it was found by a New York dealer in a Louisiana auction house and bought for like $4,000. Uh-huh. And it had been in a house 6 blocks from where I grew up for like 50 years. A New Orleans family had bought it at auction in England.
Is it real? I'm like dying to find.
It ended up being bought by the bad dude in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
For I think $450 million and instantly discredited. And it's sort of like maybe Leonardo might have seen this at some point.
Did they get their money back?
No. It's because it hasn't been so totally discredited.
There's enough to be in a court case.
There's a difference between a fake and a forgery, right? A forgery is something that is consciously pretending to be something like you and I went and painted a Leonardo and tried to pass
That's
it off.
Dude.
that's an actual fraud.
That's
and
fraud.
There's
This
intention.
is misattribution. It's probably like school of or whatever. But the Louvre had a Leonardo show and declined, and the guy at the Louvre is sort of like the man, declined to include it in it. And it's just vanished. Nobody knows where it is.
Oh, my God.
So that kind of thing happens quite a bit. And of course, when the buyers are Russian oligarchs and they're sticking it in shipping containers and nobody's going to see them again, they're just marks because, I mean, you may get shot if they find out, but nobody's going to know what you did.
I had in a movie, I wrote a plot line about a guy who he wants to travel with $30 million undetected. So he has a Mondrian that he just folds up into a backpack. You know, like it's a very cool, it's a cool transfer of wealth. These things, it's like, how else does one hold $400 million and travel with it? But you can.
But if you have a stolen work of art, you've got something that you really isn't vendable. You have trouble, so you're not going to be able to sell that.
Right.
Once it's stolen, you get the pleasure out of it, but that's all you're going to get out of it.
You get to tell your mobster buddies, come over and look at this.
That you have that.
Yeah.
I can remember, can I tell one Wildenstein story? Because this was an amazing story. The question at the time when I was there, I was only there 6 months, but I had a free run of the whole place because I was a stock boy. So I spent all my time looking at paintings no one knew existed and sculptures. There was a time when Daniel Wildenstein, since deceased, but the guy who ran the it was like the grandson of the guy who founded it, comes rolling in from Paris and he says, "Bring me the Houdon." Now, Houdon was a very famous Enlightenment sculptor. He did these, you'll know a lot he did the busts, of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and Voltaire. And he managed to get all the leaders of the day.
Yeah.
And they're these magnificent, realistic things. Yeah. And they're all known. Everybody thought they were all known. Like you'd open a book of Houdon, you'd see all of them. And to our knowledge, we did not own a Houdon. And he gets and so nobody knows what he's talking about. Yeah. And finally he gets really upset and he marches into the elevator and motions everyone to come with him, goes down to the basement, pulls out this massive, shitty plaster bust of his father, of George Wildenstein, I think his name was, takes a hammer and a chisel, goes boom, it opens up, and inside is a Houdon of Mirabeau, who was the triple agent in the French Revolution, and who had smallpox, so he had his face was all scarred. No. And this thing was unknown to anybody. They had smuggled it out of Paris and gotten it to New York.
Whoa!
And from then on, went into an event. Now it's known. It's sold. I don't know who bought it, but it was like he put a $10 million price tag on it, and eventually it sold.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
There was that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, you're kind of watching as they pull the jade mask out of the burial site. Like you're getting to see the artifact when it's first discovered in a way. Watching it come out of the plaster. That's
that must
cool.
have been so cool as an art person to be in it like that.
There was nothing to do all day because the only people who came through, every now and then a billionaire would come through. Yeah. And every now and then, the other people who would come through were the museum directors. And there was a guy named Tom Hoving, who was a very famous director of the Metropolitan Museum, and another guy named Everett Fahey, who ran the Frick Museum. And they knew they were just world-class observers of paintings. Mm-hmm. And they would come through, and I'd be left alone with them. And I was told, show them whatever they want to see. Yeah. And Fahey came through. I loved him. He's died. Both of them have died since. But Fahey came through, and I got to kind of know him because he came through a few times. And one time he looks at me and goes, "You have any friends who are interested in like Renaissance painting?" I said, "Yeah, actually my dad is. He's obsessed with it." He says, "This isn't very expensive. They have a couple of pictures here. I don't think they know what they have."
Oh, really?
Wow.
My father owns them.
No way!
Yes.
No way!
My father bought them.
Because you were like, "Hey, Dad, fucking pick these up."
Yeah, some insider trading.
Oh, wow, insider trading.
I love that.
It was. Well, I mean, it wasn't. They sold it knowingly.
Yeah.
He said, "These are gems. These are interesting pictures. They're not very expensive. Like one was $40,000, and I mean, it cost something."
Yeah.
What do you think they're valued at today?
He has a Saint Jerome in the wilderness bashing himself in the chest with a rock. And the idea is to ward off sexual thoughts. Sure. So, which is not an obvious thing to go and take a rock to yourself when you're right. But it's by Fiorenzo di Lorenzo, who was the master of Perugino, master of Raphael. And it's an amazing picture. And he bought it for, I don't know, $100,000 or something, and it's $1 million painting. Anyway.
That's great.
That's so cool. Now I want to get into art.
Well, be careful.
Here's the problem. Your original point, like this seems like this should be a good book. in the art market, and I'm sure for someone else there is. I have so much trouble caring about the people. The people who are the victims are like billionaire
I know.
collector. And
Yeah.
it's just like, it's just so hard to get worked up about the characters.
Yeah,
That's
this Saudi dude got ripped off for $450 million. I'm kind of like,
cares?
cool. I'm
Good.
glad the money's here now.
Yeah, kind of rooting for the guy who ripped him off.
Did you ever want to steal one? While you
all
were
I
in
would be
there,
thinking
like
about. I'm like, I gotta
staring
get a
at
replica of this.
You know, that's
replace
very
it.
funny you say that because I swear to you,
Yeah.
that thought never crossed
Really?
my mind. No.
That's the first thing I thought.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's so
me too.
funny. I mean, they must smell that, but and keep people like that out.
Yeah.
But that thought never crossed my mind. What did cross my mind is, this is a strange story, but for whatever reason, my father told me two things growing up about like careers. One was, look, he wasn't unhappy with being a lawyer exactly. It just wasn't a passion project.
Yeah.
What he was a very gifted administrator, and so he ran the law firm. He would also end up running businesses that the law firm were entangled with. It was he did a lot of different kind of administrative things.
Yeah.
He ran a big hospital for a stretch, but he said, like, the problem with the law, unless you're a litigator, litigators love their jobs. They're performers. They're
Yes.
actors in the courtroom.
Yeah.
He said, you're dealing with other people's problems, and other people's problems are just not that interesting.
You're also dealing with people in the worst version of themselves. They are in trouble. They are desperate. They're scared. You know, it's not even
Right.
You're not catching any of these people on their best day.
You're catching families that are fighting over money, and it's
Yeah,
nasty.
it's all
And
ugly.
So he said, like, he kind of scared me off the law and things like the law. But for some reason, he said, never take a job where you have to wear a blue suit. Now, I think what he was thinking was banking. I don't know what he was thinking, but he had something in his head about if you have to wear a blue suit. And I thought, well, that's never going to happen. I'm not going to do it. But when I got to the Wildenstein Art Gallery, the rule was the stock boy had to wear a blue suit.
Oh, my
And all I
God.
had was like seersucker from New Orleans. And I just wore it. And they started yelling at me, like, go get a blue suit. And I said, I don't own a blue suit. And I was, it was a knockdown, drag out fight. And finally, they took me by the hand over to the Bloomingdale's Young Men's Department and bought me a blue suit.
Young Men's
And so the one thing I did do that was kind of squirrely was when I quit, I went in the morning before they opened, and I left the blue suit on the sidewalk in front of the place.
Wow.
As an act of, like, I don't know what, upper middle class protest.
Yeah.
Sure. Very brave.
Very brave.
Very brave.
Very brave.
Okay, so after a bit of this, you do realize I'm going to need to make a living, and you decide to go to the London School of Economics. Is that where you ended up?
That was a bank shot because I had a girlfriend at the time who was getting out of college and going to the London. She really wanted to go to the London School
Okay,
of
great.
Economics.
And you wanted to be with her.
Yeah, so I followed her.
Okay.
And I also had the thought, the world is a conspiracy of people who understand the language of economics. All these classmates of mine in college seemed to, I thought, threw away their college lives studying something they didn't care about, but in exchange, they got a pass.
Yeah.
They got a pass to wander the halls of Goldman Sachs or wherever, and they could talk that language. And I thought, I'm going to go learn that language just to go learn that language.
Yeah. You were
Yes.
suspicious.
I was suspicious. I wasn't, and I had a class, one class in microeconomics when I was a senior that I took pass-fail, so I didn't have to do very much work so I could focus on my thesis. And I remember thinking, why didn't I realize this was interesting? Like, I stayed away from it because all these people I disapproved of were studying it.
Yeah.
Rather than going and seeing what it was.
Yeah.
And actually, some of this is really an interesting way to see the world.
When I learned of, in combination with your Vanity Fair article and this great front line about the meltdown, when I learned about the complexities of the credit default swap and about the instruments that no one at the firm understands except for three people, that is fascinating.
That's finance.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of...
So that wasn't even this. This was like, what's the difference between a complement and a substitute in the marketplace? Or when prices go up, what happens to demand and supply?
Like Adam Smith 101.
Yeah, it was Adam Smith 101.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it was.
Okay.
And it was just, I thought, wow.
Yeah, that's also fascinating. Markets are fascinating.
Yeah.
They're like a living organism. They're cool.
They are cool.
Yeah.
And I thought, and the London School of Economics gave me a chance to play catch up. They had a program where they put you through their whole undergraduate program in a year, and you got a master's in year two. And so my father, in his wisdom, had he called it the Lewis family deal. And this is the joy of being raised with privilege. He said, as long as you're doing something, I will cover your expenses for the first 3 years out of college.
Oh,
yeah, it's awesome.
love that.
You know, I was working as the art dealer, but I didn't get paid very much.
Yeah, you
I
didn't need
actually
to.
became a woodworker's apprentice for 6 months.
Wow.
And then I went to the London School of Economics for 2 years. And that was, I mean, that was in a lot of ways transformative. I mean, that's where I started publishing stuff.
Okay.
I started submitting things willy-nilly to magazines, and the British are much more receptive than Americans to amateurs.
Oh, they are.
They don't like it's not who are you, they just read it and go, wow, I'll read that.
Oh,
I like
wow.
this.
That's almost counterintuitive to me. I think of Britain as being much more steeped in social hierarchies and prestige. And
That's true, too.
Yeah.
But it's true that they, at least there are many fields that we treat as professions that they treat as crafts
Yeah.
or guilds.
Okay.
And so it's like, you don't have to go to journalism school. You can just start, you're just writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a great friend in Britain who's a journalist, and he didn't go to, and he's incredible.
No one cares if you wrote for the school newspaper. All they care about, does the piece work?
Okay, so the writing started then.
They
okay,
did. That's
all
where it
right.
started.
So then you go and you trade bonds or you sell bonds. I mean, there's a wild story, but you have a cousin in London who's like kind of
So I have
aristocracy.
Well,
Yep.
she married into it. She is my New Orleanians understand this language more than anybody on earth. She's my first cousin once removed.
Yeah, no one
I've
knows.
never understood this.
Which means she's my mother's first cousin. She married the Baron Patrick von Stauffenberg.
Fucking A, let's go.
He is the nephew. You know the von Stauffenberg who put the bomb onto Hitler's table?
No.
Yes.
Oh.
His uncle was the one who tried to assassinate Hitler.
Oh, that's a cool lineage.
And he's great. They were great.
Yeah.
And I got to London and they had dinner parties and I would be the young person they would invite over to amuse the older people. One day she says, I got an extra seat at a dinner and it's in St. James's Palace. And it was kind of a bunch of business. It was hundreds of people, but it was the Queen Mother was coming.
Yeah.
And she said, you can meet the Queen Mother. And I thought, why not, you know?
Is the Queen Mother just the Queen?
The Queen's
Mother.
Oh,
She was
Very literal.
She was Queen Elizabeth's mother.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And I was sat between two women, both of whose husbands ran Solomon Brothers' London office.
Okay.
And at the end of it, one of them said, whatever you're doing, you stop doing, you ought to come work for my husband and come work at Solomon Brothers. And
Which
I
I
said,
can
You
read between the
charmed their
lines. You
pants
charm
off.
the fuck out of these.
the fix was in at that point. I went over and had interviews, but it was kind of like whatever. Everybody seemed to like me right when I walked in the door.
Yeah.
And then I got offered this
By
job.
the way, talk about learning the secret language of what's really going on. It's like, yeah, that's how it happens.
Yeah, your wife, if your wife says hire them, they will.
So this is really true. This is still true.
Yes.
And now it masquerades as a pure meritocracy.
Right.
It is so true that sort of like the first break is not pure meritocracy.
No.
In this case, so I had that point in my head. I was getting out of school, and at this point, the Lewis plan was over. I had to make a living.
Yeah.
And I was publishing stuff, but I was being paid so poorly, you couldn't live on it.
Right.
And I thought this when I got out of college, when I started to write stuff that didn't get published. Have lots of experiences. Writers have this problem. They just become writers, and then they don't know anything but writing, and that gets very boring, and you write books about being a
Plays
writer.
acting as well. It's like you've been pretending to be other people since you're 18. When did you?
You didn't get
Get in
any
that-
real experience.
Yeah,
to
you're
pull.
playing a factory worker. You never even
How do you
work.
enter into that space? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to rely heavily on imagination.
And a bag of tricks, probably.
Yeah.
And so I thought, and still think, whenever you have a chance to have meaningful life experience that isn't writing, have it.
Yeah.
And it will inform the writing in some way.
Yeah.
And it gets harder and harder to do that.
Of course.
You kind of like, you're typed as the writer.
Yeah, the more successful you are, it almost hinders you in that way.
True, because you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting stuff happens because you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought of Wall Street, I thought, oh my God, that not only is it going to pay me a whole bunch of money, but this could be interesting to write about.
No, to peek in behind the curtain of this culture, which is elusive and, how could you not be intrigued to see what's happening
It was
back there?
Wall Street in the 80s.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And
yes.
nobody had quite understood what had just happened. Like, why were young people who had just come out of college being paid the equivalent of $100,000 or something to start?
Yeah.
And when they clearly didn't know anything,
Yeah.
like what was that all about? It was also true that real serious quantitative ability was starting to get valued. So they were just then, this was the moment where they were starting to grab people out of like the physics department at MIT.
MIT.
But this was just happening, and it was just happening in our place. Like we were at the bleeding edge of that.
Oh, wow.
And as chance had it, it wasn't just that I got a job on Wall Street. At that moment, the firm I joined, Solomon Brothers, was making more money than all the other Wall Street firms combined. What had happened is there had been an explosion in indebtedness in the society.
Yeah.
The government was borrowing lots of money. There was the invention of mortgage bonds. So
when did those get
all this
invented?
happened in late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
But the market was exploding. And Solomon Brothers had historically been this place that was kind of a sleepy backwater, but they were really shrewd traders of bonds. And bonds were always thought to be like, that's not where the money is. Stocks are where the money is.
Yeah.
Right.
And all of a sudden, bonds were where the money was. And what happened in that place was, it was the best story on Wall Street.
Yeah.
And
an
then,
atomic bomb of money went off. Right?
and it went in a crazy place that although it was, when I got to it, had become a public corporation. They had sold stock in themselves. They had pretty recently been just a private partnership. And the behavior in the place was like the behavior you would have in a private men's club where nobody was ever going to see what happened there. And it was literally every third day, some stripper would come in, take off all their clothes on the desk.
Yeah. Dudes are throwing spitballs at each other. I mean, everyone's acting like they're 13,
food
right?
fight, yeah.
Buying too much food just to show off.
The material was fantastic.
Yeah.
What about Coke? How much were you seeing Coke? I need a little more Coke in this story.
Yeah,
Is it Coke or Quaaludes?
No,
both are happening,
I
but
hesitate.
That's to come off the Coke.
Because I'm pretty naive about drugs.
Oh, you are?
I am.
Okay.
Alcohol's great. I never really need anything more.
Right, good.
And so, I don't know, maybe it's...
But we would agree it was all fueled by Coke.
It was fueled by almost like a gambling addiction.
Right.
But that's what you saw. It's this compulsive behavior. And so people were betting money for the firm, and when they weren't betting money for the firm, they were betting with each other on anything they could bet on.
Liar's poker.
Liar's poker was one thing.
Yeah.
Dice. There was like one thing after another. And horses, sports. It was just like constant gambling. And that's not... I got my problems, but that's not one of them.
Right.
And I just don't feel it. I don't care about it.
Yeah.
But it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
And fun to describe. And the characters, they let in all kinds of characters. It wasn't cookie cutter people.
Right.
I was kind of cookie cutter.
They're all scrappy, right?
They were
That's
all
kind of
we had like former Navy fighter pilots and former professional athletes and people who just come off the street and shouted their way into a job. And
it was hustlers.
It was hustlers.
That's a good vibe. I mean, that's an energetic vibe.
Very energetic.
Yeah.
In some ways, I love that part of the place.
Yeah, I bet it would be intoxicating just to be involved in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. And it was also intoxicating because I was, by their standards, a kind of an intellectual.
Right.
I'd gone to Princeton.
You had a master's.
I had a master's. I thought all the time about things.
Yeah, you knew about art.
I knew about art. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Triggering stuff.
And so there was a training class for 6 months where it was not like teachers from out of the place. It was the actual traders paraded through. And you could ask them anything.
Yeah.
And I was the guy who always had his hand in the air and was grilling them, trying to understand what they did. And I really want to get my mind around the whole, and it let you do that. I got to master the subject because they enabled it. They let me do it.
Yeah.
And it's a moment I don't have anymore, right? I don't have, I know what goes on Wall Street a little bit, but at the time I felt like I knew more about what was going on Wall Street than anybody.
And so much of this stuff is brand new.
It's
Everything's
all
been digitized.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the young person is learning it and the old people don't know it.
Yeah, very powerful.
That's what it felt like.
Yes.
And it was absolutely thrilling for about a year and a half. And then I hit some cliff where all of a sudden there wasn't that much to learn.
Yeah.
And what I was supposed to be doing is selling people stuff they shouldn't buy.
Yeah.
And
you're surrounded by toxic human beings who are like in a nosedive.
Yeah. So I just felt, I remember just like going home at night and staring at the ceiling thinking, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah.
Like I should not. That was bad. You did a bad thing. And I was rewarded for it. Like I was successful.
Right.
But I stopped liking it.
You ended up managing millions of dollars in London, right? You were in the London office.
I was in the London office, and my clients were people who were managing billions of dollars.
Right.
And so I wasn't widows and orphans, but my job was to get them to do stuff they probably shouldn't do.
Right.
And or sometimes they should do it, but mostly not.
Yeah.
And my job, I mean, in a funny way, this is a little crude.
Yeah.
It was to get them to take the other side of bets that our own traders were making.
Yes,
So these were not good bets.
That's what's fucking
Right.
wild is you learn about how all these banks work. It's like they're playing every single side of it.
They used
with
to be.
some
much
tiny
more.
margin.
Yes, that's right.
And they're living on this tiny, it's like in your podcast, it's like the guy who figured out that the odds on a New York Knicks versus Lakers game, the odds in New York are going to be different because they're biased by loving the Knicks, and then the Lakers bettors are going to be biased. So the spread in those two places, there's something to be made there.
That's right.
There's like a point off.
Yeah, that's right.
Because of this.
You bet the Knicks in Los Angeles and the Lakers in New York, and
you're gonna win.
And you have a no lose prop, or at least you're not going to lose.
Right.
You're going to get different point spreads in different places. And
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
I got to a point where I was faking it, and when I started to fake it, I started to do less work at work and started to write more articles about what was going on at work.
Right.
And I got in trouble.
Yeah, I was wondering what the fallout of, because it's nonfiction. You're using everyone's names and.
This is what happened. I wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal's op-ed page saying everybody on Wall Street was overpaid.
Oh,
And
while you were there.
Well, I was there.
Yeah.
And
Jumped.
at the bottom of it said my name, and I was an associate at Solomon Brothers in London.
Oh,
Yeah.
And this is how delusional a 24-year-old is, though. I remember thinking, it's so cool.
mean,
it's so cool. Everybody's gonna think it's so cool. He has
He's
an article.
so brave,
he has an article in the no, but it's like I was thinking I'd come in, the boss would go, "Man, you have an article in the Wall Street Journal." And no, that's not what they said.
You thought everyone had your same primary desire, which is to be a published writer.
I get to work, and the guy who's the husband of the woman, the guy who hired me, who ran the whole Solomon Brothers, is waiting for me at my desk, and I really liked him. And he looked so sad. And he said, and kind of gray.
Yeah.
And he said, Michael, it was like, Michael, what have you done? I said,
could you do that?
I've been up all night. And I said, why? And he said,
Reading my article over and over again because it's so
because you
good.
love my article so much. And he said, no, he said, we had an emergency board member meeting because of the article. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And he said, he wasn't going to, he could, very oddly, there were a bunch of reasons why they didn't want to fire me.
It would have looked horrible if they fired
You'd be
you.
like a whistleblower.
No, that wasn't it at all.
What was it?
I had stumbled into the second or third most profitable client the firm had, and who I didn't do anything useful for. They were just amused that I was there and report. I would tell them the things I was going to write, and the guy said, "I don't need any advice from people like you. If you just tell me what you're saying, that will be useful enough, and I'll funnel all my business, a lot of my business through you." It was Jacob Rothschild, the Rothschild, the guys who ran his money, and they became so big that I was just a money machine, and without having, there was no. All I was not offensive to them.
Yeah.
It was like I wasn't doing stupid things trying with them. I wasn't trying to sell them things they shouldn't buy. And they just, when they wanted to buy something, they call or sell something. Yeah. And they let us make money off them. So they did, and they refused. They were really pretty funny because I was 24. They refused to talk to anybody else in the firm.
Oh, I love this move.
So the firm was like, extremely important people, including the CEO, would come to London and want to meet them.
Yeah.
Because, my God, they're now the second biggest client of the firm, whatever. Yeah. And they would say, no, thank you. We just want to talk to Michael.
Wow.
And so
This is awesome.
No wonder you're writing articles.
So in a way, they made me possible because they protected me. So the guy wasn't going to fire him. His name was Charlie McFay. Great guy. He says, we got to find a way this doesn't ever happen again. You can't write. I said, Charlie, it's what I love to do, and I'm going to keep doing it. And he goes, could you find another name?
Oh.
And I said, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
I could do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it popped into my head. I said, what if I used my mother's maiden name? Diana Bleecker Monroe. So I wrote some things under the name of Diana Bleecker.
Oh,
interesting, because now we've changed genders. I wonder what that does to the reception.
So that's what he said. He said, this is perfect. He said, because none of these people around here are going to think a girl's a guy. That's what he said. Exact quote. Yeah. He said no one will think about it.
Yeah.
And it never would say Solomon. It would just say Diana Bleecker is whatever.
Yeah.
Now, the New Republic then was a pretty hot magazine. Michael Kinsley was a editor of Genius. Michael Kinsley, who published some of my first pieces, some of them under the name of Diana Bleecker, he refused to just let it ride at that, let it sit at that. Yeah. So he would put at the bottom of the article, Diana Bleecker is a pseudonym.
Oh.
Okay.
And one day I got home and I got a landline call and I pick up the phone and the actor Chevy Chase, his dad was named Ned Chase. Okay. And Ned Chase was a prominent nonfiction editor at Simon & Schuster.
Oh, wow.
And Ned Chase, he said who he was. I can't remember if he told me that Chevy was his son.
He did.
Yeah. we can almost guarantee that he did.
He definitely did.
He might have. And he said, I just figured out you're Diana Bleecker. And he said, and you really need to write a book. And at that point, I thought, shit, I can write. You'll pay me to write a book? I'm out of here.
Right.
And I know when this was.
It had to be a price or a paid cut, though.
Oh, well, a huge pay cut. I wasn't even thinking that. As long as I could live on it. Mm-hmm. So I remember this, but it would have been like September of 1987 because I got to stay till, I realized at that point, I got to stay till January because my bonus will hit my bank account in January. So I got to fake this until January. Once a month, I would fly back to New York for just bring clients to the Chicago Exchange or to go hobnob with the people on the New York trading floor. And I had with me a notepad out when the stock market crash of October 1987 happened. And I was just wandering the Solomon Brothers trading floor, writing what ended up being a chapter in the book, watching it. And I was already thinking, I got a book in this.
Yeah.
Your timing is pretty...
It's funny that nobody is like, Michael, what are you writing?
Right.
What are you writing?
It's like you were taking an inventory of everything that was lost.
So I was running around making these notes. And so that happened right before that. And then I was out of there, and I told them I was leaving in like January of 88, and the book appears in the fall of 89. Now, there's one other funny little footnote, and this makes it, they were charming in their way. They were rude, crude, socially unacceptable, misogynist. But if any one of these guys was sitting here, you would like them.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
You would say, Michael, you're an asshole for having sold them out. Yeah. That's a real guy. You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Because there was a realness to them. They were not phony, slick investment bankers.
Right.
They were like
street hustlers.
Yeah. And I was very fond of them. And I didn't. Not all of them were that way, but a lot of them were that way. So as I'm walking out the door, you might think, you've seen this chick has just written a book about Facebook and called Careless People. Has just come out and Facebook has sued her and she's not even allowed to go on television to talk about her book.
Oh, no.
And she signed some sort of non-disparagement agreement when she was leaving Facebook, so she can never talk about it now. And she's, who knows, may have to pull the books from the
because people
shelves.
like you have made everyone else wise.
So this is something like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't sign anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Nothing. And not only had I not signed anything, I told them I'm quitting to go write a book.
Right.
And I'm going to write a book about Wall Street. Because why not tell them, right?
Yeah.
I like them. And they brought some big shots, brought me into a room and asked me, what are they paying you? And I said, I think it's like $40,000 advance. Yeah. They'd just given me like $160,000 bonus. And that was like for them chump change. It's like next year it's going to be $400,000 kind of thing.
Oh my God.
And they brought me in a room and the tone was, again, not what you'd expect. They were troubled. They were really worried about my mental health. They thought I was screwing up my life by leaving what they thought was a sure fortune to go write a book. That who was going to read a book?
Right.
And
they actually cared about your well-being.
They cared about my well-being. I'm going to regret saying this because it'll come back to haunt me. But it is. I have said it a few times. I don't think I've ever said it publicly. One of the guys, and he was extremely senior in the firm, said, Michael, we think you could run the firm one day. Oh my God. And I remember thinking, you're out of your fucking mind. I can hardly show up. I can't brag myself to work. That I run the firm one day. Yeah. But they thought highly enough of me in that moment. Yeah. And they just cared.
Well, how intriguing you must have been to them too.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
I think so. I think so because you all seemingly have the same goal, which is like, let's make a bunch of fucking money and let's make it for our clients. Yeah. And to see someone have gotten to the place they're all desiring to be and to leave is just very intriguing.
Well, it was weird.
This is Bradley from your podcast.
Yeah.
To go be a Rhodes Scholar, that's so intriguing.
instead of going to the Knicks right away.
Yeah.
It is intriguing.
It is. So they're
Who does that?
undoubtedly charmed and intrigued
There's a short list
by-
of people.
Yeah.
David Robinson, instead of going right to the Spurs, right, he goes into
Joins
the Navy.
the Navy, yeah.
Roger Staubach does the same thing for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I mean, some people go on Mormon missions instead of taking.
Fucking Tillman.
Yeah, there you go. The people do that kind of thing.
Yes, and it's
far more noble than anything I did. But to go and fight for your country kind of thing.
Yeah.
But to be wired so that you're insisting on living your life instead of the life the world wants you to live.
Yes.
And that sounds like, oh, of course you live your life instead of, but actually there are all these incentives to do stuff that you really don't particularly want to do.
Yeah.
You just get on an exit and you're on that road. And it takes a great deal of effort to exit it.
This is a byproduct of first being raised with incredible privilege, so I don't fear starvation.
Right.
Yeah. That's a necessary condition there. But it's also a byproduct of being from New Orleans and being raised in a pretty happy, very kind of family-oriented environment where you didn't get measured by your success, except in sports. But not like nobody knew what anybody else's dad did for a living or cared.
That's unique.
A value system was a little different.
Yeah.
And so, but I knew what happiness felt like.
I also think New Orleanians, whatever you call them, I think they value personality more than other places.
What is really rewarded is openness to other people, openness to just casual social interaction, and being entertaining. Is highly valued, but it isn't highly valued in a very self-conscious way.
Yeah.
It's just it's appreciated and encouraged.
Yeah. To be a character is cool.
Yeah. To be a character is cool.
Okay, so the book comes out. It's very successful. It is one of the kind of seminal works from that time that really
goes right to the top of the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow.
And I'm nobody.
Yeah.
And I'm 28. And it all of a sudden, like, I have a career.
Yes, you're going to be a writer.
People are telling me I'm a born writer. Now, which comes as news to anybody who ever taught me. It's like,
you should send that to the professor who said you were a bad
English teachers throughout time. They was like, I always had problems, and so it is a curious situation to be in.
So my one follow-up question, because now that is 30, however many years
That
in the
was
rearview.
1989.
Right.
October
so
of
36
89.
years
Right.
in the rearview mirror. And I imagine you have a similar dissonance that like Oliver Stone has, where Wall Street, although supposed to be a cautionary tale, was very inspiring to a lot of people to actually get into Wall Street.
Yeah.
How do you take the fact that many people read Liar's Poker as a how-to? They want more tips.
So this was a great lesson to me about how people read books. They read the book they want to read.
Yeah.
I got a letter after I wrote The Big Short from a very intelligent, very serious, very upset Oxford Don, a philosophy. I saved it. I don't remember his name. Saying, "You were responsible once for diverting all this young talent to Wall Street. I thought you might have learned your lesson, but you've now done it again with The Big Short, and you really ought to take responsibility for what your readers do with your books." And my response, I'm not unsympathetic to the criticism. I think that may be true. It's probably true. That I should take. Maybe I should take more responsibility for the consequences of the books. However, if I do that, the books are going to suck.
Also, the person who wants to
not
read
your
The Big Short and get that message is in search of that message and will find
Find
it.
it somewhere
agree.
else.
And we just talked about this the other day. It's like J.D. Salinger cannot take responsibility for two assassins holding his book. I'm sorry that those people felt
ones?
inclined. The
John
assassin,
Hinckley.
of
John Hinckley.
the John Lennon's assassin was
Oh.
reading the book at
Oh.
the scene of the crime.
Oh.
There's been a few. There's been like a suspicious amount of people that
Okay.
have found the inspiration to assassinate people. Now, I read that book as one of my favorites. I certainly didn't get that message.
No.
Yeah, it's Bill Gates' favorite book. He started Microsoft. But, it's not on J.D. Salinger. He can't fucking decide how people are going to.
People, and it's not, but it isn't that every young person who read the book said, "No, I want to go work on Wall Street." Because I've had plenty of people say, "I read it, and I hear what you thought it might have done, and it did that for me."
Yeah.
Like, it demystified it for me, and I thought, I don't really need to go do that. I'm going to go do what I'm going to go do.
Yeah.
So I've had plenty of people say that, but I've had more people say it's why I went to Wall Street.
Wow.
But those people would have found some other reason to go to Wall Street.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's true.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I do think there's an appeal to it. I get it. It's like if you're a young dude. It's the closest you can get to have a career that is playing a video game.
It's
You
fun- and
get
it
there,
seems
there's
fun.
points, you chase points, more points, they do this. Like you're in a constant state of dopamine and reward center being triggered and all the addiction things. It's like, I get it. It's so for some people who want to live at 11, that's the spot for you.
Yeah, and you get to play a video game with a stripper on your desk.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, while eating too much guacamole that you've ordered.
No, that's right. It's,
Yeah.
So, and there was I think there was this other thing that came. Books have dog whistles, and sometimes you don't realize what the dog whistle is until the reader. You say, "Oh my God, look at all these dogs running because of the book."
Yeah.
And the dog whistle for this book was, I persuade the reader, because it's true, that I don't know anything. Like, art history major, yeah, I studied economics, but that doesn't teach you how to make money on Wall Street. And I get to Wall Street, I learn intellectually how these markets work, but I know nothing I say to you is going to cause you to go get rich. And if I knew something, I go to our trader and tell him to do it and make it for the money for the firm.
Yeah.
So it's like there's almost no way that what I'm saying has actual financial value. And yet the world is paying me a fortune for it. There are lots of young men sitting at American universities who think, I don't know anything, and no one's ever going to pay me to do anything because I don't know anything. But look, he doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
And they paid him a fortune.
Yeah.
This is the place for me.
Yeah.
That I'm just like
Or
him.
Hollywood.
Yes. Or I'm just like
There's a lot of
or I'm
options.
just like him.
Yeah.
And so there was that.
Yeah.
I identify with you.
Yeah.
And wow, it pays to be that. And
Yeah.
so that happened a lot.
I do want to talk for a second about The Big Short, because I had the enormous pleasure, and I want to thank you to your face, to getting an issue of Vanity Fair, where you started writing in 2009, and reading the article that led to that book. Or maybe that was an excerpt, but didn't
It's
you?
Portfolio magazine.
Is that what it was?
It was a Condé Nast magazine,
Okay.
but The Big Short starts when an editor at Portfolio calls me and says, "You want to revisit?" And I said, "Nobody will talk to me. Like, I am just toxic. Like, if anybody
Yeah.
sees me on a trading floor, they're gonna get anybody who brought me in is gonna get fired."
He was the guy who rattled the automotive industry with the safety glass.
Ralph Nader.
Yes! You're like the
Oh,
Ralph
wow.
Nader
Goodness.
of finance.
It was just, I just thought I'm toxic. But however, I did see that the things that had gone, I sensed that the things that had gone wrong in these big Wall Street firms had their origins in my experience at Solomon Brothers, and that this was kind of the end of a story that I'd written the beginning of.
Yeah.
And then I started just calling some of the guys who had lost all the money for the Wall Street firms. I mean, then there were individual traders who had lost like $10 billion. And to me, it was unthinkable, because the place I had left, the Wall Street firm had such an advantage, informational advantage in the market, they seemed to just win every time. And I thought that was going to happen forever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
somehow the Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns had become the dumb money at the table. And I thought that's the story.
Uh-huh.
Well, AIG the most. No?
AIG too.
Because they were selling the credit default swaps.
They were selling, all these people were selling insurance.
And I just want to say to people really quick, a credit default swap, it basically is an insurance policy in concept. I own 1 million shares of General Motors. I want to make sure I have a little insurance in case it ever goes out of business, that I don't get wiped out. But here's the thing. So that's a credit default swap. But you actually don't have to own $1 million of stock. This is the fucking major hiccup in
Yes.
the premise of this
Right.
product.
Right.
So I can say I want to insure 10 million shares of Berkshire Hathaway,
Right.
and then launch some scandal on.
I could buy fire insurance on your house.
Yes.
Now, what incentive does that create?
Yeah.
That you want my house to burn
I
down.
want your house to burn
Exactly.
down.
Yeah, that's an insane product.
So there is a wonderful New Yorker writer named Casey Sepp who wrote a book about Harper Lee. And in this book, she creates the book that Harper Lee was trying to create when she got blocked. And it's about a minister in the South who bought life insurance policies on other people and then murdered them.
Of course.
Yes.
And
That's
made-
like every Dateline episode.
Yeah.
and made a huge living.
Yeah.
doing this. You should not be able to buy insurance policies
On
on
shit you don't
things you
own.
don't own.
Exactly.
Or
And-
lives that aren't yours.
That's right.
Yes.
And however, Wall Street creates this product where you can buy insurance policies on securities you don't own.
And they're astronomical. People should know. So it's like I'm the factor of I can insure $1 million worth of stock I don't own for very little amount of money, right? Like the returns were astronomical.
It's pennies on the dollar.
Pennies on the
And if
dollar.
so I can buy $1 billion insurance for a few $1 million
Yes.
on these bonds that are never going to go bad.
And Lehman Brothers, which people own credit default swaps on Lehman
Yeah, that's
Brothers,
right.
started as a rumor that
Right.
took down the firm.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they create all these incentives to do
Destroy
bad-
all these
to
companies.
destroy all these companies.
But it dovetails nicely into the fact that you started when mortgage-backed bonds happened, because now we have all these mortgage bundles that were being sold all over the place. So,
And then you buy insurance on them.
and you buy insurance on it.
And you buy insurance on them even if you didn't own the things. And so I wander back into Wall Street for Portfolio Magazine, and I start calling some of these traders, and they want to talk to me. And that's when I thought, Christ, I might be able to do this because I can get that side of the story. And it turned out they wanted to talk to me because Liar's Poker was why they were on Wall Street. And it was like after about 10 of
Inspirational
these, it was
guy.
like I created the financial crisis with this book. But then it was just like stories need structure, right?
Yeah.
And there were two aha moments. One is, they were the dumb money. Who's the smart money?
Michael Burry.
Yeah.
That's the most interesting story I've ever read. I mean, among the most interesting stories I've ever read. It's such an amazing personal story encased in this kind of world event.
Yes.
But the notion that you have a man who has a wandering eye or a lazy eye and believes
A
that's
glass
why
eye.
he's
Glass,
a glass eye, even
yeah.
better. He has a glass eye, and that's why he's not social, and that's why he explains all of his awkwardness with all of his relationships through this glass eye. And then he's a fucking surgeon.
Training to be a neurologist.
Yes. And then starts trading, and he's the only person willing to sit down and read the actual loan applications for all these fucking. I mean, and then wins and has a son who clearly is autistic. Then takes the test, and as he's saying, my son does not have autism, and he's getting 100% on the. I mean, what a fucking story!
There was this cliche on Wall Street when I was there, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And he was actually the one-eyed man who was king in the land of the blind. And there's this other thing about him that it wasn't until the movie came out that I understood it. Christian Bale plays him in the movie.
Yeah.
And Christian Bale nailed him so unbelievably exactly on the screen. And I had the thought, I could not have described to Christian Bale what he needed to do to play that role. How did that happen? Like and so Christian Bale finally confessed to me what he'd done. And Michael Berry said, Christian Bale called me up and said he wanted to spend the day with me, and it was the weirdest day I've ever had in my life. But Christian Bale came and studied him for a day.
He was you on the trading floor with the fucking.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And then asked for his clothes at the end of the day. So Michael Berry shipped him his clothes, so he wore his clothes. Wow. But Christian Bale figured out that all the weird mannerisms, he said it all came from him breathing in the wrong places in sentences. If you try this, if you do this, all of a sudden you're herky jerky in all kinds of odd ways. And he told Adam McKay, the director, as long as I'm breathing in the wrong place, I will reproduce this guy's physical.
Wow.
He is the best living actor. I'll be on
100%.
record saying he's impossibly good.
There's something about when someone is really good at what they do, there's a simplicity to it.
Yeah.
Everything slows down for them. And I felt that when he said that, I actually thought, first, I'm ashamed that I spent a year with Michael Berry, and I did not notice that.
You wouldn't have been able to
I'm
pinpoint that. It
supposed
was
to
his
note-
breathing that
I
was
get
wild.
paid to notice things.
Yeah.
And I did never notice that. But yes, it's true. And then I thought, when I go write about people, I'm going to try to spend a little time pretending I'm Christian Bale
Yeah.
and asking myself, if I'm Christian Bale, how do I play him?
If I had to be him,
yeah.
I
what
think it
are
would
the
be
physicalities?
Even funnier as a protocol is you call the subject and you go, I want to do a piece on you. But first I'm going to send actor Christian Bale in for a couple couple hours and then I'm going to meet with Chris and then I'm going to come talk to you.
Shortcut.
It's a very unconventional approach I have to writing, but you will be sitting with Christian
I have
Bale
this
for
assistant who's going to spend a couple hours with you just to tell me how to describe you.
Oh, the movie's so good. Were
Isn't
you
it?
so happy with it?
Yes. I was, more than happy. I was shocked he pulled it off.
Yeah.
I thought it was undoable. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't see how you do it. I didn't see how you made it. I
know.
thought, people buy stuff all the time they're never going to make. I thought this is one of those.
Yeah.
And it was
It's incredible.
yeah.
But he had to get really creative.
He did get very creative.
He got really, really creative.
And he nailed it. And it's got real relevance now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, because I think that event, the financial crisis, speaks to this moment in our politics right now. The anger it created, and it was a justifiable anger. It was all of a sudden, we go from a society where everybody's at least willing to at least pretend to believe that it's capitalism.
Yeah.
It's harsh, but it's capitalism. We're all living by the same rules.
It's fair.
It's fair, but it's harsh.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, no, these rich people are not playing by the same rules.
No.
If I fail, I fail. If they fail, the government comes in and not only bails them out, but enables them to keep paying themselves huge sums of money.
Yeah.
When what they did caused enormous harm to me.
Yeah.
And they should have at least be out of business.
Down to if you were on a line making SUVs for General Motors that hit you.
Everybody.
I mean, it just really knew no boundaries, that crisis.
It radicalized a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because you can read about savings and loan scandal milking right after you wrote Liar's Poker.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, oh, okay, we identified this thing we must be aware of. But then it resurfaces in 2008 and you go, okay. And then what you really have to admit is this impulse is never going anywhere. It'll be whack-a-mole for eternity. This is the nature of people.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And it'll have different shapes over your lifetime, but you're going to witness these things every 15, 20 years. And that's kind of the reality on this planet. I mean, that's my cynical takeaway.
But if you think about what came out of that event, the Tea Party, which morphs into Trump.
Which morphs into Tea Party, even into QAnon.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
Exactly.
Bitcoin, which is a sort of a reaction to the mistrust of the institutions and the governments. I remember when I was reporting the book that one of the obstacles I faced was that the smart people who'd been on the right side, and had often tried to do the right thing. Like, they didn't just make the bet, or in one case, before they made the bet, they went to the Wall Street Journal, they went to the FBI, they went to the SEC, and nobody wanted to hear about it. Yeah. And they made the bet sort of more in sorrow than in greed.
Yeah.
But they were terrified that the society's going to wake up and is going to have to turn on someone. And they're going to turn on me because I made all this money out of it.
Yeah.
And that was, and getting people to be comfortable with being
rooting for,
getting the subjects comfortable with me coming in and talking to them to write about them in a way that was going to make them very prominent.
Yes.
Made them very nervous.
Yeah. You're shining a light. Wait, this guy made $1 billion during this?
Yeah.
Like the two guys.
Those two guys were the most sensitive.
Yeah, I bet. They seemed like such sweethearts.
The two young guys in the garage in Berkeley.
Yes.
Now, what wasn't in the book, but it has, and it was the one time in my career I regret allowing a subject to tell me, "We'll tell you everything, but there's one thing you have to keep out." And no one's ever done it to me before, but I thought in this case I should do it. It was worth it. His father was the vice chairman of Lehman Brothers. And he and his father had this argument while they were making the bet, because the father had funded the firm. Like, the father would say, Lehman Brothers would never do such things, and Lehman Brothers would never be in this position. Yeah. And his son's saying, no, your firm's this is corrupt.
Wow.
And it got very heated. Wow. And there was, if you were ever going to turn this into a different kind of drama, that father-son thing would be a really interesting. It killed me. I couldn't use it.
Yeah.
That would be very frustrating to be telling this whole story and to be leaving out such a compelling part of it.
I hate the feeling that I haven't told the reader everything I think is important.
Yeah. Or everything
it was the one time I felt this is kind of important, and I should have told the reader should know this.
Yeah.
But that was the only time, and it really I have moments like that in my life. I remember I stopped blurbing books like 20 years ago because someone I had a social connection with asked me to blurb the book. Yeah. I didn't like the book. I could not do it. So I was lying on the back of the book. I said, I'm just never doing this again.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm never going to do this again either. It's like if I can't if I can't include all of it, I feel like it is uncomfortable.
Yes,
It feels
yes.
uncomfortable. It was worth it, but uncomfortable.
We cut stuff in here that any guest wants cut. And our feeling is generally more just like, oh, what a bummer. That's a really good spot. And they're too nervous about this.
How often does that happen?
It happens
One
a
in
fair
5,
amount,
one
but
in
there,
10.
there are very few times, but there have been times that I've pushed back. I've asked, like, there's a reason why this is important to keep in.
Yeah.
Can
Most
we
often,
please?
it's heartbreaking because they're worried about the reaction. And it's so clear that the reaction would be very positive and support.
Right.
And
And it's just
human.
like, God, you don't see that this is actually great.
Right.
It's never like, oh, damn, we don't have a juicy thing. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, man, you don't know that this is actually quite endearing about
So
you.
this is very funny you say this because universally, when I write a book, the main characters are a little upset with me. And because I don't give anybody any editorial control and they read it when it comes out.
Yeah.
And they call or we have a conversation and the first thing is they've read it, but everybody else is reading it too. And they don't feel betrayed exactly. That's not right. They feel like I have exposed them in some way. They feel exposed.
They feel very
they feel
vulnerable.
naked.
Vulnerable.
Yeah.
They feel naked.
Yeah.
And I made them naked.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, and they're upset that they're naked.
Yeah.
And then what happens is people appreciate them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then what happens is like their best friend calls and says, "That's you." And they realize my best friend knows that's me, so that's
And still
okay.
loves me.
And still loves me.
Yes.
And so
Even-
everything's okay. And then they forget that they were ever naked.
Yeah.
And then they forget they were ever upset. I don't write books about people I don't feel some sympathy for. I don't like people who
Yeah.
So this is not a hostile act.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
I know exactly what you're saying. Is that people don't know how other people see them, and they think they're managing the situation,
Yeah.
and they aren't.
Right.
You know, they are.
Yeah.
You know, I know that you were seeing me right now
Mm-hmm.
in some way that's slightly different than I would see myself if I was sitting there describing myself, and it would make me uncomfortable to know what you were saying.
Of course.
But it's okay.
yeah.
But it's okay.
As
And
we
it-
say in AA, it's none of your business. Like
How
what he
other
thinks of
people
me
see you.
is actually none of your business.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you agree that, I guess it's 5 seasons, not 4, but this season of your podcast,
Against the Rules.
Against the Rules.
So we took on sports gambling, and it was as a way to talk about the society, really. But it's a really interesting situation, and it's an awkward thing to take on because everybody who might take it on is being paid by the sports gambling companies, and so there's not a lot of honest stuff about it.
Right.
And I've had friends who gamble on sports or who are friends with the people who own DraftKings and FanDuel or whatever, whose opinion about the industry has changed because of the podcast.
Right.
Wow.
And that I've noticed.
Yeah,
I've really
yeah.
noticed.
Yeah.
And I was just at this past weekend the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference. It's like the Moneyball conference, and it's 3,000 nerds in a room.
Yeah.
And a lot of GMs of sports teams, and it's been overrun already by DraftKings and FanDuel. And so there are all these people from DraftKings and FanDuel, and it felt like I was the stink bomb in the room. And nobody will really, they didn't have any panels on the subject. They didn't have any, but it's clear that this is an uncomfortable subject.
It's kind of like exposing CTE.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Or
So
smoking,
it's like,
or smoking and cancer.
Yeah.
People get pissed off because there's
Yeah.
a lot of money at stake already.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those two companies are $30, $40 billion companies. It is sinister
Yeah.
what we're doing to young men right now.
Yes.
It's not just with sports gambling, but we're creating young male anger at a fantastic rate. If you were going to set out to create as much young male anger as you could, you'd do a lot of things.
Great job.
You're doing a great job.
We're doing a great job. Let's take away manual labor jobs. Let's take away the trades. Let's stop sending them to college. Let's get that suicide rate up. Let's tell
them they're evil, and when they're from the minute they walk in the classroom when they're in first grade.
Yeah.
And then Let's create an industry that preys on young male overconfidence.
And testosterone and rites of passage and
All of that.
acts of bravery.
Yes. And that has, with unbelievable precision, the ability to identify people who don't know what they're doing and get them to do as much of it as possible.
Yes.
At the same time, they can, with great precision, identify people who, the very, very, very few people who actually know what they're doing when they're betting on sports and kick them out of the casino.
Yes.
It's diabolical.
Those algorithms, they can go, oh, this guy's too good of a gambler.
He actually is making edge bets, the bets that have positive expected value.
Yeah.
He knows something about golfers that we don't know.
Yeah.
We can't take the bet.
And he's gone.
So
And
they
he's
just
gone.
say you can't do this?
Yeah. They only want fucking.
They're allowed to
They'll
just
say,
say,
oh yeah, they'll say, we'll either ban you. We gave. So we got a pro gambler who knew what he was doing to give us his bets to place, and we participated a little bit, so it was legal. And we got booted out everywhere in a matter of 4 or 5 bets. And it was even where we'd lost money because they could identify that the bet, even though the bet lost, it was a smart bet.
That's like a bar that's only letting
heck?
alcoholics in. You got to prove
Yeah.
they're an alcoholic first.
Literally.
And then anyone who can manage their drinking, you get the fuck out of here.
That's exactly
it's that
right.
sinister.
If you're just going to drink water, we don't want you.
Yeah, we want fucking addicts
how
in
can
here.
this be legal?
Well, let's go through it. Can we start? I was really fascinated with Dan Wan. He's a great character.
Yeah.
So Dan Wan started studying fans,
Okay.
which no one had really ever studied.
Right.
And I think the reigning opinion of people who attended sporting events was a certain type of person. And through his studies, he found out, well, you'd be surprised to find out that fans are, they donate more money, they're more politically active, they have higher GPAs. They're not the group you think they are.
No, they're socially engaged.
They're socially engaged.
Yeah, and so that they are, but they are not rational.
Right. So now we get into the kind of Danny Kahneman
Yeah.
take on these guys, which is what happens to someone's thinking when they're a fan.
I mean, it's motivated reasoning, right? It's like you will systematically think your team is going to do better than you should think, or your favorite players. You got half your brain in a really irrational space already because you are a fan.
Well, I like when he puts it so simply, like just the original proposition is, come spend 2 hours with us. There's a 50% chance that you're going to be very upset at the end of this, and it costs a lot of money. You see the bias right there. Like, any rational person would be like, no, those are terrible odds if I'm going to spend a bunch of money. Usually half the time I'm going to leave here totally upset.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that when you introduce gambling into this mind, it's already a mind that it thinks it knows things it doesn't know.
He gets into the superstitions.
Yeah.
Like, and I myself just did this. I went to a Detroit Lions game, the one they lost in the playoffs, and I hadn't been to a game all year, and I went, and it was like a big deal, and they lost, and I'm like, it's because I hugged the coach. He didn't want to hug me. He's like, why do I have to hug that fucking guy? Because he's on TV? I had this whole story. I'm like, all Detroit hates my guts. And I'm kind of buying it.
It's funny what gets studied by academics and what doesn't.
Uh-huh.
And as he points out, he says, like, the fan was just sitting there waiting to be studied. It's such an important character in American life. And he said, but pinheads like me generally don't like sports. Like, it's like people were just turning a blind eye to it because they thought it was not worthy of attention.
Right.
And for our podcast, it's worthy of attention just to establish that the brain space in which this gambling industry is going to enter.
Because they are targeting fans.
They're targeting
That's why
fans.
it's very important to understand right out of the gates that a fan is doing some irrational thinking.
So most people who bet are a fan of the thing. That's surprising to me already. I would assume most people who get into sports betting aren't fans, so they could be sort of objective
There
about
are
it.
some who do that.
Yeah.
But it's
And they're kicked off.
Overwhelmingly, they are fans.
Wow.
Yes. So what happened in this country is that back in 1992, Senator Bill Bradley, former New York Nick, had passed a federal law that forbid states from legalizing sports gambling that didn't have it already. And that grandfathered in Nevada, for example, and a couple of other little
Maybe
exceptions.
Atlantic City.
Maybe Atlantic City. No, they didn't.
Oh, they
Not
didn't.
Atlantic City.
Oh.
No.
Oh, they didn't have a sports book there.
Then what happens is that because Atlantic City's not grandfathered, they don't have it. New Jersey gets upset they can't do it. And Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey, launches what seems to be a quixotic and futile lawsuit to try to get overturned Bradley's law. It succeeds in 2018. And it's in 2018, the Supreme Court says this law is unconstitutional. It's up to the states. Any state that wants to legalize sports betting can. And since then, 38 states have legalized it, and which creating all kinds of weird natural experiments, like Alabama doesn't, Mississippi does, and suicide rates go up in Mississippi, and savings rates go down in Mississippi. You can see the effects
bankruptcy,
of it.
Yeah, we
all
just
that
went
stuff.
My own personal story. I got to have dinner one time with Ted Olson.
So did I.
And I find him to be one of the most impressive people I've ever had a dinner with. And what's so interesting to me about Ted Olson is he was the lawyer that argued in front of the Supreme Court that Citizens United, is that what it was called? So he has this one thing on his record that us on the left would fucking hate, which he made corporations humans.
Yep.
And at the restaurant, the busboy comes over, starts crying, and says, "Thank you so much. I got to marry the love of my life because of you."
Yeah.
And then he's on the other side and gets rid of DOMA.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're like, fucking, here's complicated life for you. Right?
Yeah.
And so
he's
brilliant.
And he's the lawyer Chris Christie hires to argue the Supreme Court case.
Oh, wow.
Right? I mean, this is the reality of life. Like,
Well, he's
good
just
guy-
a good lawyer.
But he cared deeply about DOMA. He felt like that was
Did
a
he
huge
care
violation.
about DOMA, or did he care about winning a hard case?
He truly said this is an injustice and believed that. And it was a liberty issue. And he believes in liberty.
Right.
And sometimes liberty falls on your side and liberty falls on the other
that's
side.
true.
But you make a very good point in asking that question, because I think I had dinner with him too, and we interviewed him. I really, really liked him.
He's damn likable. He's from the South.
He died.
He died?
He died. He died 3 months ago.
Oh, I didn't know
He died
that.
right after I had dinner with him, like 2 weeks after I had dinner with him.
Oh,
and,
I had no idea.
But I asked him, I was just curious. You're the most famous constitutional,
Most successful.
Argued the most cases before the Supreme Court. All that stuff. I mean, what's the strategy here? You're not just taking anything that comes in the door. And he would say that, look, one is I care about that I don't want to argue something I don't myself believe, but also if I think this is a non-starter, it's a waste of time. So he's also picking cases. He's looking at the Supreme Court. He has the Supreme Court wired. He knows what they think about things, and he's picking the things that he thinks are going to succeed.
Yeah.
And he had an odd premonition that sports gambling would work.
One element of this has to be that I heard in the podcast which is fascinating, is someone comparing that some definition is this a game of luck or a game of skill? Because tournaments are not illegal.
So here's what the reason we have two huge corporations in the middle of this business that are not Las Vegas casinos, DraftKings and FanDuel, are that preceding the legalization of sports gambling, there was a fight to legalize fantasy sports, which was and they were two fantasy sports companies. And fantasy sports looks a lot like gambling.
Yeah.
You're entering like competitions, and
It's a pool, you buy in.
You buy in and you win money if you win the and they went state to state, these two companies, with very shrewd lobbyists, and persuaded a lot of states that this was not gambling because it was a game of skill.
But poker's a game of skill.
Yeah.
And it's gambling.
Yes. Yep. So it's blackjack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a
slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope, and they had where they had success was especially where there weren't Native American tribes to oppose them.
We'll get to California, but that has a lot to do with California, right?
Well, California and Florida are both places where the tribes were very powerful.
Yeah, big lobby, lots of money.
They had the right to have gambling on the reservation. They didn't want anybody doing anything like gambling off the reservation.
That's right. That's right. And anyone who lives in California, every time these props come up, you see these are very heavily funded.
There's so much money.
Because you have casinos on one side and you have the tribes on the other.
That's
And
right.
Yeah, you see more of those commercials than anything else.
That's right.
Okay, so the Supreme Court says states
Can
can't
do this, and the states are starved of revenue, and they're looking for new sources of revenue, and so they want to believe, and FanDuel and DraftKings lead the charge and get legalized sports gambling in lots of places with state regulation. But if you interview the state regulators, they basically say they're running circles around us. Like the state regulator in Ohio was very funny. We interviewed him. He said, "My teenage son is getting pizza boxes with free sports bets attached to it from these companies. And I'm the regulator."
Yeah.
Right?
And now I gotta go. Okay, no more on pizza boxes.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
They're whack-a-mole.
Or you're with your Uber ride, you get a free sports bet. And so they're enticing young people.
Yeah, I bet it's not a lot on the salads. The quinoa bowl probably doesn't
That's
have free.
probably right. So I live in a state like you, California, where sports betting has not been legalized.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, the vast majority of the boys in my son's high school class are betting on sports.
Really?
And so they are both underage and in a state where it's illegal. And one of the things I realized, and he was like, "Yeah, I can do this. Here's the app." And you find ways to get around the restrictions, and you just do it.
Yeah.
So we actually did an episode where I gave him $5,000 and put a GoPro on his head, basically, or a wire on him, and said, "Let's go see how smart you are, and we're going to learn why you shouldn't be doing this."
Yeah.
It was going to. I inoculated him. It was like handing him a box of cigarettes and saying, "You got to smoke the whole box,
Yep.
or a fifth of whiskey. You don't get to get up until you finish it."
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see him figure out what was going on. Like it's for me, it's obvious, right? I was on Wall Street. I know a lot of people in that world.
Yeah.
I know that if DraftKings or FanDuel are trying to get me to do something, I shouldn't do it.
Yes, you enter life as I do, which is you're in Las Vegas and you see they've built a glass pyramid in the desert, and you must go. I guess the people gambling don't win, right? You just acknowledge the reality of like, yeah. There's systems at play that are much more complicated than I could ever be as an individual. And I have to acknowledge that enormous asymmetric.
Yes. And it's true in all markets.
Yes.
That if you're going to teach a trader, someone who's going to trade anything, one thing, you teach them the idea of adverse selection. That if someone is finding you to trade with you, it's quite likely that person knows something you don't know. And to expand on this, if there's a market price for something, there's all this information in that market price, and a bet like a money line or a point spread is a market price on a sporting event, and unless you know something that the market doesn't know, and you better know why you know something the market doesn't know, because the market knows a lot. You are at a disadvantage that the market knows stuff you don't know. So the person on the other side of the bet likely knows something you don't know. Yeah. And that was like the first thing.
That's your baseline.
That's your baseline.
Yes.
So there are, I know them, professional sports gamblers who know that like golfer A is better on this kind of course than the market knows and is going to overperform at this tournament because this kind of course suits him. Or fraternity brother knows that his fraternity brother who's on the basketball team has just agreed to miss the first free throw in the basketball game this weekend. So there's inside information that is useful. That's true. If you have that, go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not this, I'm not, this is not
You're not
advice.
endorsing it.
No, I'm not endorsing it. Right. But
if you have to gamble.
If you have to gamble, make
try
sure
to have some inside
try to know
information.
something.
Yeah, you should know
right,
something. Yeah.
Once this happens, and the Supreme Court allows this, you go to Vegas and you talk to some like veteran bookmakers. What has the impact of this been on Vegas, and what are the people in Vegas saying?
Vegas was not ready for the change.
They were caught with their pants down.
They're caught with their pants down. The FanDuel and DraftKings has this huge advantage over the Las Vegas casinos, who have sports books, in that their business model was more like a tech company, the FanDuel and DraftKings. It was more like a social media company.
Yeah.
They knew everything about the behavior of their fantasy players. So they knew what their weaknesses were, what vices they could be encouraged to indulge in, who would make what kind of bet, that kind of thing. And the fantasy sports companies knew everything about, and that was their business model, knowing about their customers.
Yeah.
And that's a new idea for the Las Vegas. I mean, they know the high rollers, they know it in a very general way.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to take someone who is engaged in two-legged parlays and turn them into someone will make even worse three-legged parlay bets.
It is nefarious.
Yeah.
It's just straight nefarious. It's like payday loan type shit.
Imagine Prohibition ends in the 1930s, and there's a liquor company that actually has incredibly detailed information on how to get addicts to drink.
They have your whole history pre-prohibition.
Yeah, that's right. They have every drink you ever had, and what you did, how
This
you
guy can't say no to rye.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they show up on your doorstep.
And give it to you for free. Show up on your doorstep, give it to you for free.
So that's right. And start to get you going again.
Yeah.
And
Jesus.
Get you off that wagon.
So that liquor company has this huge advantage. And that's the advantage that FanDuel and DraftKings have.
And what about the mules and the runners?
Once I found my character, the professional sports gambler, Rufus Peabody is his name.
Yeah.
And he's among the smartest sports gamblers on the planet. And he's been making a very good living out of it for 15 years.
What is a very good living?
Millions of dollars a year.
Millions
Stop.
of dollars a year.
Yeah. Yes. Millions of dollars a
Oh,
year.
I thought you said I thought you said billions.
No, so
I was like,
and he works his ass off. Like he really does have edges in the marketplace, and it's not easy. But part of his problem is that in the old world, the Vegas casinos would take his bets. In the new world, FanDuel and DraftKings won't. They figure out he knows what he's doing, and they don't want the bets. So to get his bets down, he has to hire networks of people, like his mother. They're professional people.
Well, he's got to trust them.
He has to trust them, and they have to be smart at disguising the bets. So that if you're actually a professional mule, if you're actually placing these bets for Rufus, you do things like make stupid bets occasionally so that they don't
you don't look
detect.
so pro.
So
You got to trick the algorithm.
This is wild.
You live in New York, you bet on the Knicks. And you do that for a little bit so that they classify you as dumb better. And then you come in a bunch of smart bets. So, but our producer in the podcast, Lydia Jean Cott, who is, one, doesn't know the difference between a basketball and football, and two, is such a nervous Nelly around money and risk, like would never go into a casino. That's too scary kind of thing. Rufus gave Lydia Jean 100, 150,000, I can't remember, lots of dollars to place bets with, and she was running. So her
This
bank,
is hilarious.
Her bank shut down off her credit cards because they thought someone had stolen them because there was all this money coming through the bank account that she has been banned from, I think, every sports book in the country. That she and has been told you're never welcome here again. Wow. And the funny moment was there was one sports book. It was I think it was MGM. So one of the Vegas sports books took her first bets, the smart bets. The bets actually lost. So she lost a bunch of money right away on golf, like tens of thousands of dollars, and they thought, dumb high roller. They misidentified her. So they weren't good at figuring out those bets were smart. And they wanted to make her VIP. They got in touch with her and they gave her free tickets to Charlie XCX. And she calls and she says, finally, this has been the most miserable experience of my life.
Yeah.
I don't want to be doing this. When can I stop?
Cortisol levels are through the roof.
But now I can go see Charlie at Madison Square Garden. And she was so excited. But she made the mistake of continuing to place bets. And the day of the concert, they called and said, we're taking away the tickets.
They took away
the tickets. Those bastards.
Oh, my God.
Those bastards. Broke her heart. Broke her heart. And so I should have bought her tickets.
I was just going to say, you're wealthy.
It's so funny. I should have bought her tickets, but I was thinking, this is such a great end to the story. I just want to leave it at that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
They can do that.
I want to hear her tears.
You have your priorities straight. How does the VIP status work on these online things, and how is that like turbocharging the addiction?
That if you get to be a VIP, there's something wrong. You have a problem. I was talking to a bunch of people who manage large sums of money for like university endowments and pension funds and all the rest.
Yeah.
They're these people who are giving money to Wall Street people to invest for them. And they asked me, if you were interviewing a Wall Street investor to decide whether to trust them with your money, what question would you ask? Like one question. And I said, I'd ask, have you ever been a VIP at a sports book? Because if you're a VIP at a sports book, you're exactly the kind of person who should not be investing money. That they have identified you are bad with money, you are going to be a long-term cash cow for them, and make a lot of stupid bets. And we'll frame it as, for a lot of people, maybe it's true. It's like, I can afford to lose this. It's just fun for me.
Yeah.
It's recreational for me to lose $1 million. In this pool of VIPs are lots of people who can't afford to lose the money.
Yeah.
And they don't make the distinction. One of our sports gamblers wanted to see just how badly the big sports books would behave. he started to behave like an addict.
Yeah.
And would say things like, I just need another line of credit that my wife doesn't see. Let me in the game. And they would say things like, you can't put this in writing. Just tell me over the phone and we'll get you the line of credit. I would say that if you managed to get yourself designated a VIP, it's an embarrassment. It's not a compliment.
Red flag.
It's not a compliment.
Yeah.
Oof.
Oh, boy. How is California, who has made this, and I want to thank California publicly, and I want to acknowledge my own stupidity as a fan. So I see this Jake Paul fight with Mike Tyson. I grew up watching Mike Tyson knock guys out. I know the one thing that doesn't decline as you get older as a boxer is your knockout punch. We watched George Foreman drop Michael Moore at a very late age. And I'm like, this kid's never fought. So I see that the Mike Tyson knocking him out pays 3-1. I'm like, I have to make this bet. I sign on to one of these sites. I can't even remember which.
Right.
Go to place this bet, and you can't. And I'm like, I can't. It's because I'm in California. But I didn't even know that.
Oh.
So I'm pissed. Then I go away to Hawaii that weekend. I can't make a bet in Hawaii. I don't know what to do.
Oh, they have a real problem with gambling in Hawaii. It's one of the couple of states that have moral objections.
Good for them.
Yeah.
So I go down there and I've got to take some side bets with human beings. I end up getting $300 on the table. And of course, he loses and he doesn't knock out Jake Paul. And I was like, thank God California didn't take my bet. I think I was willing to go like 10 grand on it. And it goes to show I'm a fan of Mike Tyson. I don't even think about the fact that, okay, Jake Paul's the one with the career that's building. He knows something I don't know about this fight. Yeah. I just get rid of all my rational thinking. And now I just want to thank California for not taking my bet.
Do you think the fight was rigged?
What I think is that there are a couple of slow motion exchanges that are impossible for me to believe because Tyson does his bob. He's done this 1,000 times. This is what muscle memory. As soon as he ducks and misses that, you're getting the right uppercut. And you see him start to throw it, and then he doesn't throw it.
Oh.
Now, I'm not going to say publicly, I don't want to get sued, but I'm saying that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. This is a guy that's thrown that exact move hundreds of times with crazy outcome.
Right.
And he just stops. And he's in the middle of the movement and he stops. And I'm like, that doesn't look right.
Do you think if you said what you were maybe about to say that you would get sued?
It's just your opinion. I don't think you could get sued for
I wonder if I say Jake Paul fixed that fight.
In your opinion.
What's the difference? When you say your
Yeah.
opinion, it's still slander, isn't it?
No, because
I have no information.
let's try it. Let's give it a
I
whirl.
don't know if that's the way to get your legal advice.
I think if you say allegedly, we just say allegedly after everything,
All I'm
and that
saying
seems
is
fine.
I witnessed some of the fight
Allegedly.
that does not make sense to me. Do you have an opinion on it?
I don't.
Okay. Do you watch it?
No.
Okay.
I
No,
didn't.
not interested
Not
in
interested.
boxing.
I'm not a huge boxing guy.
Okay, great.
I don't like seeing people get hit.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I went to a camp where you were forced to box. And I remember the first fight I got in and I wailed on some kid and I hated it.
Yeah.
Like I just stopped. I don't want to beat him up.
Yeah.
And then in the second fight, someone got in and wailed on me. And I thought, I like this even less. So where is the fun here?
You're like, there's a lose-lose.
Where is the fun here?
Okay, so how is California? Do we starting to see? I guess we're 6-7 years into this experiment. Are you already mentioned Alabama and Mississippi, but is California experiencing less of some of the fallout from this as other places?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know. The tribes have succeeded in preventing gambling from being legalized.
Yeah.
But as I say, my son,
Figured it
he's
out.
17 years old and he's on the apps and he's gambling.
Well, just paint me a little bit of a picture of how bad it is, and then I want to go into what you taught your son and what we can maybe advise other people that are listening to adhere to.
Young men who take to sports gambling become addicts at a rate of about 8%.
8%.
And Charlie Baker, former governor of Massachusetts, is a new head of the NCAA. When he became head of the NCAA, he went and did a kind of listening tour of colleges because he wanted to see what was going on in sports on campuses. And he thought he was going to find one thing, and he found another. He found an epidemic of athletes being harassed by their fellow students, gamblers. And the harassment was like death threats. You miss this free throw or you're dead.
Yeah.
Or just tell me now something that I know that I can bet on.
Yeah.
And it was so bad that he did a survey and found that 60% of the boys on college campuses were sports gambling. And now I think that's
60%.
60%. So I think that is probably missing what is an even bigger story, which is I don't think there's a high school in America where there isn't basically a sports gambling ring. It's become...
It's part of being a boy.
It's part of being a boy. It's just become what you do. Of course, for most people, it's not going to have much effect, and it'll be
92%.
fine. Well, yeah, but it's a machine for creating lots and lots of addicts.
And it's a particularly cruel addiction. We interviewed someone with a gambling addiction.
Roy Choi.
Yeah, the famous chef. And what was illuminating to me as an addict was I've never done an 8-ball of Coke, felt like shit, and thought, oh, I could do another 8-ball of Coke and that would get me out of this.
Right.
It has the most unique trap, this addiction,
Yes.
which is like there's the
Takes you to
illusion
the
of
end.
getting even.
Yeah.
And then exiting. So everyone has a fairy tale.
Right.
I just want to fucking get even and then I'll stop.
Right.
There's no getting even in Coke. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because maybe I'd still be trapped there, you know?
It leads you to oblivion. It leads you to the end. That's right. It leads you to ruin. And I've met, I kind of thought one way that the reform is going to happen, it's going to be some high-profile person's child is going to get...
Yeah, we're going to wait till
because
then.
that's happened in England. I don't want to tell you who it is, but I do know a person who's very prominent there, whose son has just not committed suicide, but close, and who's bankrupted himself. And it's like the dad realizing this is outrageous and is going to work politically to constrain the gambling industry.
In the UK and Australia, there are things to learn from them, yeah?
They're way ahead of us.
They're ahead of us.
And they're much less prone to making stupid bets. It's interesting. We are uniquely stupid. We're not inoculated. It's like smallpox just hit us.
Yes.
And it is, I think, I might be wrong about this. Maybe this is all just going to go away and this new vice will be assimilated into the culture and we'll all be fine. But I do think it's more likely that we're going to be living with an epidemic, and that it's silent. You don't see it. It's not like with drug addicts, you see them. You just someone on his phone doing stuff, and you've got a casino in your pocket. Yeah. So I think we're going to wake up and go, what have we done here to a half generation of young men? Yeah. And the question is like, what do you do then?
Yeah.
Right? What do you do?
Yeah.
You have a child.
Yeah.
What do you do? And it's a question I think a lot of parents ask themselves about a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do I protect my child from this thing?
Yeah.
It's out there. He's out there in a predatory environment. It's essentially a predatory business.
As was the mortgage thing.
But my child was not going to bet, was not going to buy credit default swaps.
No, but
Exactly.
I remember my initial reaction to the 08 meltdown was like, all these people that couldn't afford these houses went and bought these fucking houses because they believed it was going to go up 20% a year. And I blamed them.
Right.
And then I learned how they were approached. Yeah. How they were approached to refinance, how they were encouraged to buy a house outside of their thing. I go, oh, no, this was a calculated, coordinated effort to get all these people. Yeah. Yeah. They abused vulnerable people, as they always do.
That's right. I mean, I actually do think that if you have a boy, that you need to have not just the sex talk. Yeah. You have to have the gambling talk.
Right.
And
so, what did you do with your son?
Walker, who is a senior in high school.
And a Texas Ranger. Famously a Texas Ranger.
More in Oakland A. But I said first, you hear this thing, sports gambling. He goes, yeah, we're all doing it. And
he himself already was.
He was not yet, but all of his friends
He was
were.
circling.
I went and taught his English class, and there were like 30 kids there, and he asked during the class, can you raise your hand if you're gambling on sports? All but one of the boys did. None of the girls. And but he said, yeah, I'm tempted. I kind of I think I know some things here, especially with hoops. He's a hoops player. He knows about the Golden State Warriors. So I said, here, I'm going to give you $5,000 and you're going to wear a wire and we're going to just follow you. I'm going to stay out of it. I'm not going to parent you. The producers may a little bit, but you're going to just explain why you're doing what you're doing and you can keep the winnings. What I thought was going to happen is he was going to vaporize the $5,000. And it was going to be humiliating, and the humiliation would be the antidote. That he would learn how little he knew, and that the things he thought he knew he didn't know, and how complicated this market was, and how this market was trying to get him to do stuff he shouldn't do.
Yeah,
That's not what happened.
Oh no!
He drank the fifth of whiskey and he was like, that's great. Let's do this again tomorrow.
Oh my God, he made $1 million.
I didn't
throw up. He didn't get hungover.
I don't want to ruin the episode for the listener. The episode, it turned out so beautifully. What actually did happen, he got the lesson and he got the money.
Wow.
And how that happened, I would rather people just listen to the episode.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Oh,
yeah.
I am.
Well, I'm really delighted you took this on.
Yeah.
But now you do have a book coming out.
I do.
Yeah. Who is Government? The Untold Story of Public Service.
Yeah.
What is this about?
I got really interested in the federal government during Trump 1 because Trump, I thought it was just comic material. Trump had fired his whole transition team the day after the election, 500 and something people.
Yeah.
And there were 1,000 people inside the Obama administration who had spent 6 months preparing sort of a course on how the federal government works for whoever won.
Yeah.
And Trump said the course is irrelevant. I can learn everything. He literally said, I can learn everything I need to know in 2 hours. And so this
that's quite a feat.
So quite a feat. Very smart man. Beautiful mind. He's a beautiful mind. And but I thought this is comic material. I'll go get the briefings. Starting with the nuclear weapons, how the nuclear weapons are run. And the people who were going to give that briefing, they couldn't give me all the classified stuff, but they were kind of grateful. It's like, we worked so hard to like...
we didn't get to do it.
Could someone just hear this?
Yeah.
But the reception to that, it was called The Fifth Risk, to that book was so positive that I thought I might want to do more of this if it proves like useful.
Yeah.
But the other thing happened was at the very end of the book, I did one deep dive into the life of a single civil servant. And the story was literature. It was just, the material was so good. I thought, I should have done that, more of that.
Yeah.
So a year and a bit ago, I was on a hiking trail with the then opinion editor of the Washington Post, David Shipley. And I said, you know what we should do? We should do this where I can't do it. It's too complicated an institution. There's like, it's such a the government is huge. It's massive. There are 2.3 million employees.
Yeah.
I said, let me go hire 6 writers I love, like people who just, I know, make everything fun on the page. And I along with the 6 of them, will parachute into the government, and everybody can find their story. And you can run it as a series running into the election, just to remind everybody what these people do.
Yeah.
It was called, and the series was called Who is Government? The pieces were so good, and so like things you just wouldn't expect. I'll give you one that's not mine.
Yeah.
Casey Sepp, New Yorker writer, found a character in the Veterans Administration named Ron Walters. No one's ever heard of him. No one would have ever heard of him. Who took over the national cemeteries like 20 years ago. And the national cemeteries is where we bury our veterans. And when he took it over, this guy, they had kind of mediocre customer satisfaction. The families of the people who were burying their dead had mixed feelings about how the operation was run. There's an outfit at the University of Michigan that measures consumer satisfaction across our society.
Yeah.
Like it's not just private companies, but also government agencies.
Yeah.
And so you can find out how the Department of Agriculture is doing, but you can also find out how Amazon and FedEx is doing.
Wow.
Ron Walters turned this enterprise into the enterprise with the highest customer satisfaction in the entire country.
Oh my God, Walmart should have gobbled him up.
Walmart should have gobbled him.
Yeah.
And so, and you think about what a country does. Why do we have countries? Like, why do we have a country? What are the things a country does? Mostly it's there. You know, we're better off in a country because it helps keep us safe. Yeah. But it preserves certain values. And if we don't honor our war dead, that's not a sign.
It's ugly.
It's ugly.
Yeah.
And that this man has come in and honored the war dead. It's quite moving.
Yeah.
And not ask for $1 more than like his civil service pay, and not ask for anybody to write an article about him. He was very wary. Like, I don't know if I want to be out in the...
Yeah.
And so it's story after story like this. And the idea of some know-nothing rolling in with a chainsaw and saying you're all waste, fraud, and abuse, when some of these people are the best among us.
Yeah.
And have dedicated 20 years of their life to making
Their
this
whole
thing.
life.
Yeah.
It's obscene.
Yeah.
It's obscene. So it turns out that the book is very timely.
Yeah.
This was all mostly written. I wrote the last piece of it after the election, but all of it mostly was written in
During Biden.
last June.
Yeah.
And it was and it's Dave Eggers and Kamau Bell
Oh.
and John
Oh, I love
Lanchester
Kamau Bell.
and Casey Sepp and Sarah Vowell. You've seen The Incredibles? She was the voice of Violet in The Incredibles. She's a
Oh.
wonderful historian, too.
Oh, wow.
It's a collection of and Geraldine Brooks, the Australian novelist, really gifted writers. All of them, each piece is so different from the next.
Yeah. That's
so it'll be
fun.
fun. It's a way to have a conversation about this.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Okay, great. So everyone, listen to Against the Rules, but then also get Who is Government, the Untold Story of Public Service. Michael Lewis, you're very, very charming and interesting.
I love being with you guys.
I've
Yeah,
really
thanks so
enjoyed
much for
having
coming.
you.
You have to come back.
I really enjoyed it.
Hi there, this is Hermie and Permium. If you like that, you're going to love the fact check with Miss Monica. I am launching a competing religion to
Buddhism?
Quakerism,
Oh, to Quakerism.
and I'm using spices too.
Dax, why did you at least do herbs?
I'm going to use spices too to confuse people.
Okay, and what are your spices?
Shining, prancing,
Okay.
intriguing,
That's bad.
captivating,
Okay.
energizing,
Oh my god.
sprinkling. Could also be sparkling.
Okay. These are
This
all,
is like an extrovert's religion.
yeah, this is so outward
This is great.
and it's so performative.
Shining, prancing, intriguing, captivating. This is a way of life.
Intriguing is not good.
Yeah. Well, if you're using it specifically in the SLA way.
Yeah, that's what it is.
No, things that are intriguing aren't inherently that it's just been used in that.
Things that are intriguing, but you're saying these as verbs.
But you can be intriguing in many ways other than romantic or sexual.
Okay.
Mine's also easier to memorize, right? Because you probably already have mine memorized and you probably don't off the top of your dome have the original spices memorized.
I think I do. Stewardship, service.
Well, you're just kind of making a mess of it now, okay?
What? That's true.
But you got to go SPICE.
Well, no, I don't.
Okay.
God,
Okay.
you and your rules.
Service,
Service,
stewardship.
community, peace,
Oh, good job. What's E&I?
integrity. Integrity was I.
It was, okay.
Yes. How many have I done?
You need one more. You need an E.
Equity. Equality. I did it.
Good job.
Now yours, shining, prancing, spit takes.
No, that was Pete. Or what?
Okay, shining, prancing, intriguing, celebration.
Captivating.
Oh, captivating. Egg on your face.
Energizing.
Energizing and sparkles.
Sprinkling.
Oh, sprinkling.
Okay, so mine's not easier to remember. Okay.
Okay, well, that's cool. At your cult, you're going to have that.
Okay, do you want to talk about, because you were waiting patiently for me to listen to the Malcolm Gladwell episode called Rogan Intervention?
Joe Rogan Intervention. It's revisionist history.
Uh-huh.
And the new season's great so far. There's also a couple really good episodes about George Floyd.
Oh, and RFK or whatever.
Yeah. There's an episode before the Joe Rogan intervention called the RFK Jr. problem.
Oh.
That leads sort of into the Joe Rogan intervention. And God, that Malcolm Gladwell,
What a gift he has.
he's so good.
What an incredible episode.
I thought, yes. Okay, so the episode starts off kind of calling out Joe Rogan a little bit about his interview with RFK Jr. and not really, and like the difference between an interview and a conversation. And it really just deep dives into what is a good interview.
Versus a conversation between friends, yeah.
Interviewing is a real skill. It is different from conversation. And it is like, they play a clip where Malcolm's being interviewed by Michael Gervais. And Malcolm starts crying, talking about his dad.
Yeah.
But what led there was so nothing. Like it was very
Innocuous.
simple. It was, and I was like, yeah, it's complicated and it's simple. Getting like real emotion out of someone.
So there's this string of back and forth were RFK.
RFK Jr.
He claims that the Spanish flu, he's got 3 whammies in a row. Spanish flu, that people didn't die from the virus, that in fact they died from this bacterial infection. And that
Fauci signs off on it.
that Fauci agrees with him, that this conclusion. And then that what the Spanish flu really was a backfiring of a vaccine. And so, yeah, Joe's like, he is skeptical at first. He's like, according to what and what's the documentation? And he finds the article from Fauci. Then there's some like, at least Malcolm's conclusion is that neither of them really understood the difference between a primary and a secondary cause of death. So, what's he to do if he doesn't know that?
Right.
Right. Like an average person could misread that conclusion. And then when he gets into the vaccine thing, now he's just, now you're in this weird position where this guy's saying there are articles, but you don't have them. And I just wonder, I was trying to delineate how ours is different. I guess really the only difference is the people we have on are truly experts in the field they're talking about. But likewise, we can only push back so much because it's not our field.
Well, right. But I guess if we're going to have someone controversial on, which we don't do that often, actually. But if we do, before we had Andrew on, there was a conversation we had that was like, if we're going to have him on, we're going to have all the conversations and push back. So to me, it's that. It's like you can't have someone like that on who's extremely controversial and says all kinds of stuff and not be prepared to really push back.
Challenge. The statement that was a vaccine that killed 100 million people.
Right.
Yeah, of course, I'm in bed. Like, that's one of the few issues I'm pretty vocal about. I'm very pro-vaccine. Although I have a little bit, I understood people who didn't want the COVID vaccine more than maybe someone who's so pro-vaccine that I was. I understand it's your body and you ultimately get to decide what you put in your body. That piece of it I totally get. But I got more, I want to hear your conclusions because and maybe this is a bad habit of mine. I keep trying to zoom out and figure out what's really going on. That's my great curiosity. You've got like 2 intelligent people.
Who?
Joe and RFK. They're not dum-dums, either of them. They're both intelligent people. And then you wonder, why does that story appeal to them? That there's been a conspiracy, it's vaccines, that's the Spanish flu is really vaccines. Why are 2 intelligent people drawn to that conclusion?
Well, I don't know if Joe is. I don't know if that's his
I don't know
conclusion.
either. He seemed skeptical in his defense while he was hearing it.
Yeah, I don't know what he thinks, but RFK Jr. Must believe it. I mean, I don't.
He's sincere about it.
Yeah, so
then I try to figure out what's going on under it, and even broader, why is it so appealing to people? Like a vast, like a very large amount of people are drawn to that. And my conclusion is, I think if you feel very left out and excluded, that like there's this group of people in the country that are living this great life and you feel excluded by that. It's almost like you feel like they have some secret shit. Like they have some secret. Why are they succeeding at this level and enjoying all of this prosperity and opportunity, and I'm not, they're not more valuable than me. They're not smarter than me. There must be some kind of conspiracy just in general. You know what I'm saying? Like there must be something dirty going on that all these people have all this shit and then all these other people don't.
But it's not, it's not poor people who are anti-vaccine. In fact, it's mostly very, very privileged people who are anti-vaccine.
Well, that is what's weird. But I think there's 2 really big buckets. There's the Whole Foods, super liberal, probably elite group. And then there was the fuck no, that's got trackers in it. That's, Biden trying to control me. That's the anti Bill Gates faction. So I think there is two really big factions.
Yeah, but I tend to think the people who, it just in my experience, the people who are the most vocal and leading the charge are not poor people. When you have so much privilege and access to the Brazil nut that's $14 per nut that might have this special benefit, like they want to go that route, and then that's natural and all of these things. But I think most people believe doctors. They believe the system, right? That doctors pretty much know what they're doing, that when the baby is born, it needs these things, and they're just going to go do these things. And they don't have to question every single thing that comes in. Also because they don't have time or energy to question it. They're living their lives.
Well, yeah. I think the last time I looked, 83% of the country had gotten at least the first round of the vaccine for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So despite whatever you were hearing in the pushback, the vast, vast majority of the people did. So yeah, I agree. Most people just do. Most people are vaccinated. Thank God. The most, But I get just curious why that thing that sounds pretty far-fetched to me doesn't sound far-fetched to an intelligent person.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my conclusion is if you already think the system's rigged, if you're already suspicious that there's some kind of weird unfairness happening, I have to imagine you're more open to that.
Yeah.
If your kind of baseline assumption is something crooked's going on.
I know, but I don't think that's the majority of those people. I really don't. Definitely not RFK. He's a Kennedy.
But he's the black sheep Kennedy. That's how I set him in that category. It's the other Kennedys had a much different trajectory than him.
Trajectory, but not, he was privileged.
Oh, fully.
And
but even a privileged
Cheryl
person
Hines
could feel like the least privileged among the I don't know.
Yeah, but that to me is so kind of part of, I guess, sort of this bigger thing, right? You're so privileged and insular that you think you have it bad.
Yeah.
Look, and then it's also, look, if he's just a random person on earth, I don't care, right?
Yeah.
But he's in charge.
Well, now, yeah.
Yeah.
Not at the time of that conversation.
I think when he had RFK Jr. on, I think was during the election.
Oh, I don't know.
Do we know? Rob, can you check?
June 2024.
June 2024.
Okay. He was running for president at that time.
Right.
Oh, God.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. He was a
Okay.
nominee.
Okay.
Yeah, and so he's saying this is my platform.
Yeah. And then there's a really fun, and I wonder where we both land on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's the bigger issue of this spectrum between journalists and comedians with podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And then their obligations as such, right?
Yeah.
A journalist has a whole code of ethics and
Yeah.
vetting sources and all this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And there's tons of conspiracy theory podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
There's nuts. No one gives a shit. What people are really worried about is that he has a huge audience.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So it's just interesting. It's that's a very relevant variable in how upset someone is that there's just a comedian talking about conspiracy theories.
But his podcast isn't a comedy podcast. He's a comedian.
No, yeah, I'm just saying he's a comedian.
Yeah, he's
not a journalist. He's
correct.
not a politician or a doctor.
But his show is a show where ideas are explored.
Uh-huh.
It's not, a laugh riot.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are funny episodes or whatever,
Yeah.
but it is there to explore ideas. Maybe he thinks he is being responsible with it.
Well, I assume he does because I think he's a principled guy with integrity, and he just happens so I believe the experts we have on, and he believes the experts he has on.
Well, I don't know though.
And then you don't know.
We wouldn't have him on to come talk about
Right, 'cause I don't-
anti-germ theory.
Yeah, because I don't believe in
exactly.
him.
But I don't know that Joe Rogan does. I think he is come talk about
Let's
your
just shoot the shit.
thing. Let's talk about it. But then he himself isn't equipped to really have that conversation with this person who's powerful. In the episode before when they're talking about RFK, he doesn't believe in Louis Pasteur's germ theory. He doesn't believe that. He believes in the opposite thing. And so does Woody Harrelson. Like and so yes, it's not, to me, it's like,
See, I think it'd be easy and convenient if you could write the people off as dumb, but I don't think you can do that. So then the question is, how do smart people
yeah.
have the courage to go against 99.9% of
I don't
biologists who think a certain
think
way?
it's courage. I think it is a long time of not having your feet on the ground, that you're able to explore all these different options for life and the world and the way it works and who's in charge and who's not in charge. I do think it's like checking yourself on how, quote, normal your life is in comparison. I think most of these people's aren't.
Yeah, I just think there's a baseline distrust of systems. The government, healthcare, doctors, universities, like all of these
It didn't
institutions.
used to be. It's becoming more and more.
Yeah, it's hard to know chicken or the egg where there are that many people and now there's just an outlet. I don't know. You know, I don't know.
Well, we do know because measles is back now. It wasn't. You know, people are now, these things are coming back that were gone.
Yeah.
There's that whole episode about the rotavirus and the vaccine for that, which they've like, you know, RFK and them have said is bad.
Oh.
And it is like single-handedly saved
Kill millions of
more children,
infants from diarrhea, dying of diarrhea.
than any
Yeah.
other
It's
vaccine.
so reckless.
It is. It's just reckless.
Yeah. But anyways, I remain really curious. Like, why,
Yeah.
as a smart person, how do they look at that? And you look at like the tens of millions of kids just in India that have been saved from the rotovax.
Yeah.
I want to like understand how that gets shoved aside in your 13 cases of maybe not even verifiable,
Exactly.
you know, side effects, takes charge over tens of millions of people.
I know.
And
I mean,
there's got to be something interesting there.
There also might be a part of a lot of humans that want to be the you know, it's almost like the opposite side of the coin to like exceptionalism. Like, I'm different
Right.
from everyone else.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It is a kind of a display of courage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is, I am not afraid to go against the grain and to march to the beat of my own drum and all these other, you know, individual tropes that we love. A great episode. Most importantly, no matter how you fall on it, I think, like my headline of that episode to you, my original feedback was Malcolm's genius for the way he unravels a story is so proprietary and unique and stimulating.
Yeah.
It's just so,
He's such a good storyteller.
the way he flips, it's like he flips channels back and forth to different stories. And then the way he weaves them ultimately together is so impressive.
Great show. Revisionist history.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Okay, let's see here. We talk art with Michael.
Let's talk about some art.
We're going to do from Wikipedia
Let's talk about art, baby.
the list of most expensive paintings.
Mm.
Okay, according to Wikipedia. The Salvador Mundi is the most expensive, 450 million, adjusted 577. But this is the one that he talks about that a lot of people discredit.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's a very unimpressive painting to me.
it's Da Vinci.
I mean, we love Da Vinci, but I'm not impressed. That doesn't say 570 million to me.
1,500 though.
That's when it was painted,
Yeah.
1,500.
Attribution is pretty disputed. Then we have Interchange.
The Mona Lisa, obviously, we just need to say it's never been sold.
Yeah,
But
these are
that-
paintings sold.
Yeah, that would be billions of dollars.
Probably, yeah, I assume. Yes, Interchange is a Kooning.
Ooh. Okay, that's more my speed, Monica.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
That's
It was
nice.
300 million, adjusted 398.
Oh.
That was sold by the David Geffen Foundation.
It still blows my mind. There's objects that are worth
I
half
know.
$1 billion.
I know. Well, there are cars.
I think the most expensive car is about $75 million for a Ferrari GTO.
The third is a Cezanne, the card players. That was 250, adjusted 349.
I like it. It's like two cowboys.
I like that one.
Yeah, they're about to shoot each other. That's
How do we
that's my
know?
story.
I don't think so. I think they're playing
Well,
cards.
And one of them's always cheating. There's always a cheat in
Oh
these
my
cowboy
God.
card
Why
games.
are they cowboys? That
Well, the guy's got a cowboy hat on
he's
the left,
wearing like
right?
an Abe Lincoln hat.
It's kind of a mix between a stovepipe and a cowboy
Stovetop
hat.
stuffing. Okay, then we have
stovetop stuffing.
Paul Gauguin called,
Gauguin.
is it Gauguin?
Yeah.
Okay, Gauguin. Nafe fa Epiopo translates to when will you marry?
Okay, I like that one. I like her dress.
210, adjusted 279.
Her feet are a little mangled like mine.
Right, she has a lot of toe.
Have I told you
Oh,
this,
no.
that I'm now describing my foot as a comb over?
What?
Because the long toe has now moved over to fill the gap of the
Oh.
baby toe.
Oh, wow.
So it looks like Trump's hair now. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
A fucking comb over on my feet.
Oh, wow.
That may come up on Kimmel tonight, but it happened here first. We
It-
tend to talk about my feet a lot. on
Yeah,
that
that's
show.
true. That's true. Yeah, you're doing Kimmel tonight, and I'm going to Beyonce tonight.
What a night.
What
Star-studded
a
night.
night. Jackson Pollock is next, number 17A.
I think that's Jackson Pollock.
Incorrect. Number 17A, 200 million, adjusted 265.
Oh, 200 mil?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm allowed to say Pollock. Did you know that? Because I'm 12.5% Pollock.
Okay.
Because my kids are 25% Pollock. It's like the
No.
Natalie. Yeah.
But no. Then we have a Gustav Klimt, Wasserschlangen 2. That's
yeah,
100
what a name. Wasserschlagen.
Oh, wow. This is like
That's a fever dream.
women, naked women, two naked
Oh, I see a
women.
breast. I
yeah.
see butt cheeks.
But they have long hair.
Yeah.
This
and
is cool.
Flowers in between them. They're like maybe on a. Oh, there's like 4 women in that photo or in that painting.
Where's the other two?
You can see if you look at the faces, top, middle, then to the right, we've got 2 broads. And then on the bottom, we've got a broad.
Wow, yeah.
This guy was having a hell of an afternoon.
This was fun. Well, I want this one because I like art of women.
You do. That's your niche.
So I wonder if I can buy it. It was sold for 183.8 million, adjusted 248. So I just got to save up.
Quarter bill.
Mark Rothko is next. Number 6, violet, green, and red. Now this is pretty much just squares.
Yeah, good for him for being so successful with the squares. I do like it, though. It's pleasing.
I do too.
Beats the hell out of that Da Vinci
Salvador Moonbeam.
dump.
Oh my God.
Dump
Have
of
some
a painting.
respect.
It isn't worth $500.
You're mean today.
I don't even trust the providence of that.
Well, we don't. People don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Count me in that group.
Next is a Rembrandt pendant portraits of Merton Suleman and Upjin Koop.
All the people in these Rembrandt photos look like they have syphilis. Like their faces are red and weird. Like, look at her nose is red as hell.
What do you mean?
You're the least observant person I know. I love this.
I don't-
You can't see her red.
I mean,
like, look at her.
it's not about not. I'm staring at it. I don't see it as bright red like a clown nose.
Oh, I do. It's like it's going to fall off. And then the guy on the left, he's suspiciously rosy cheeked
He's
too.
pink, but that's very close to real life skin.
I think all these people were like, they had all kinds of parasites and I bet people looked terrible back then. Don't you think?
Dax,
No, you
white,
couldn't wash your face or brush your teeth.
yeah, but white people's skin
Is disgusting.
is pink. Your skin is pink.
I don't have blotches of blood on my face like this.
She does.
This
What are you
chick.
talking about?
Look at her nose.
Her nose is just shaded.
No, she's got like a huge sore on her nose. All these people look like they have scabies or
Oh you're like so. Is this because you're nervous about Kimmel? You're being
I'm lashing out at these people from the past.
Oh my God, you're right.
Oh, jeez. I'm impressed you admitted that. Yeah, she has a fucking. This woman will be dead within the month.
No, you're.
She's dying of something.
First off, you're overreacting.
Is it that she's blowing her nose so much? She is.
See, this is why you shouldn't blow
dying.
your nose a lot. She's not. She does have a red. This area of her nose, this nostril
is diseased.
Is red.
Yeah.
She blew her nose. She had a cold.
No, she has a real, like a bubonic plague. Black Death is on her nose.
You know what?
Tell me. And this chap on the left, he's like 18. He's going to die within the month as well.
Oh my God. You need to stop.
These people are long gone, Monica.
You are not being respectful of the dead or the living. Now, or the painted.
Also, don't fuck sheep if you're in the audience.
What?
That's how humans got syphilis, fucking sheep.
This sounds like RFK.
No, look that up.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Rob, can you look it up? I can't type that into my browser. I think the reason I couldn't see it at first, we're looking, for people who are listening, we are looking on the big TV screen at these pictures, and I'm not wearing my glasses.
Right.
And I think that makes me a better person.
I know.
I really do, because now look.
We have a history of this.
Then I zoomed.
Like we were watching an interview with somebody one time, and their tongue was so big. And you thought I was a bad person for observing that their tongue didn't fit in their mouth.
I thought it was a little.
I didn't
you
say
guys
like.
were being mean.
Listen, I didn't say
You
like
and
the
Kristen.
person was a jerk or anything. It was just like, wow, they really have to wrestle their tongue.
And you made some jokes.
What were the jokes? I don't remember any jokes.
Yeah, about this person's tongue being very big.
I was just observing.
No,
wow,
you
this
made
a whale of a.
You think you could ever observe something and not make a joke about it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
There's no scientific evidence to support the claim that syphilis originated from sheep.
Thank you so much
I guess
for
I am
looking.
RFK.
It likely was brought to Europe by Columbus's crew.
Columbus, they were sheep fuckers.
It does say that.
Yeah, that part's true.
This is how conspiracies start.
Well, no, but you're kind of like, this could all seem like pageantry so that we could demonstrate we're above that because you just pushed back. Then we looked it up. Then turns out I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's not from fucking sheep. Continue on.
Okay. Anyway, I just think it's best if none of us wear glasses. Okay. I think that's all for the paintings.
Okay, great. There's a lot of money out there.
Okay. First cousin once removed. Someone who's related to you as a first cousin, but is in a different generation. Specifically, they are the child of your first cousin or your parents' first cousin. Think of it as a first cousin who is a generation removed from you.
So that's a tricky one for me because I have Mandy and Kelly who would be, they'd fall under this category.
I thought they were your cousins.
They are, but they're my dad's cousins' children. But here's what makes it tricky. I'm going to tell you why it's complicated. There's only two bloodlines because my grandpa's brother married my grandma's sister and had Mandy and Kelly's mom.
Oh.
So they're like double first cousins, I think is what they called themselves. And so because of that proximity, I'm actually not, I'm like, it's same blood level as would be if it were my brother, you know.
Huh.
My dad's
But
brother's
they were
kids.
your dad's cousin's kids.
Yeah.
Your first cousin once removed is supposed to be your dad's cousins.
But that's interesting, the two bloodlines thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Okay, who is Jacob Rothschild? Big business guy. Nathaniel Charles Jacob Rothschild, 4th Baron Rothschild, was a British hereditary peer investment banker and member of the Rothschild banking family. Rothschild is a hard one. I can see you trying to not bring it up over there.
Rothschild?
Rothschild.
I was thinking, I wasn't trying to not bring it up. I was just thinking about that the Rothschilds are the center of many, many age-old conspiracies. And then I was thinking, oh, this is related to what I was saying earlier. Because I think when people acquire great wealth, they amass great wealth, all of a sudden they're somehow running the world and they're cheating, you know? So like the Rothschilds are the center of all this, that book I read, The Behold the Pale Horse. They're kind of like they're crucial players in the Illuminati theory.
Huh. like they themselves believe it or people believe it about them?
People think the Rothschilds have run the world order.
Rothschilds. See?
Johns Hopkins.
It is a Johns Hopkins situation.
This is a regular old Johns Hopkins right here.
Okay. The book Careless People is by Sarah Wynne William. Are people from New Orleans called New Orleanians? Yes. Assassinations due to J.D. Salinger's book.
Oh, here we go.
Many murder cases throughout its time. Mark David Chapman, who had an obsession with the book, murdered John Lennon. Also, John Hinckley, who attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan,
Gut shot.
was thought to be obsessed with the books as well. There are many other people whose murders or attempted murders are thought to be connected to the Catcher in the Rye, such as Lee Harvey Oswald's assassination of JFK and Robert John Bardo, the man who killed Rebecca Schaefer. It says Holden Caulfield might have some criminal potential as well, having similar traits of killers.
Yeah, that's my favorite book
Because you're a killer.
because I like to kill people. And I do think it captures very well a feeling of not fitting in or feeling different. Different in a way that's going to prevent you from integrating the way everyone else seems to be integrating.
Yeah.
And I think
love that book too.
that's on the ladder to that.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
slippery slope
Yeah.
to incel.
Like a soft landing is punk rock music, but you could follow it further.
Yeah. I think a lot of these people in basements who are, what are they called? Like,
Incels?
yeah, I said incels, but something else.
Basement dwellers?
No.
Rat people?
Chosen.
Chodes?
No, it's called. Jesus. God. Just go on Kimmel already. Get this over with. It's called something like abstinent, like not chosen abstinence, but something like that.
Celibate?
No. What if I became an incel because I started doing research?
Involuntary celibates?
Yeah, that's it, I think. Involuntary celibacy.
Which I think is just where the term incel comes from. Just like the long
Oh,
term.
that's what it comes from. I never knew that.
It's an acronym-ish.
It's actually a portmanteau.
It's what?
A portmanteau. That's what it means when you take two parts of two words and put them together.
A portmanteau.
Yeah, you ever heard that?
Oh my God.
A portmanteau.
A Natalie Portman too. That's like if Natalie Portman had a Fu Manchu, you would call it Natalie Portman too.
Heterosexual men who blame women in society for their lack of romantic success.
That's not going to get it done, boys.
I wouldn't say it's the best route.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, could you make yourself any less appealing?
I know. That's the irony of the whole thing.
I know. It's the double-edged sword that people can come together on the internet and find each other in a great way, and then they can find each other in a terrible way. Because these dudes, there were always dudes that couldn't get laid in their basement,
Yeah.
in their mom's basement.
But they were mainly
couldn't-
watching TV.
Right, but they couldn't like commiserate and feel bad for themselves and become victims.
Those
and,
other guys who were in the basement just watching TV, now they seem hot.
yeah, just the lazy guys.
Yeah.
Do you think sex robots will cure this?
No.
Like if all these incels get a really good sex robot,
no.
will they not be so hostile anymore?
No, because
They'll
they
still be
they
pissed.
still want the power over women. Like they don't want women to be more powerful than them. And so the sex robot isn't going to fix that.
Well, the sex robot won't be more powerful than them. They'll be in charge.
I know, but there'll still be real women in the world.
Yeah. I just wonder if it's like, if you video game it, they'll be distracted.
I mean,
with
they
that.
can masturbate. It's not like
They want to move their hips and hump. That's a primal desire.
They
is to do a
on the
humping.
couch.
Yeah.
They just hump their couch.
Yeah. I'm watching a show where the woman just masturbated by humping a big pillow.
Yeah,
And I just got kind of envious of female anatomy.
sure.
Because
I understand.
I couldn't hump a pillow to completion.
I bet there is something you could put it in and
Yeah,
get off.
a pillow's everywhere. Like you check into a hotel room, and if you can just hump a pillow, that's great.
But why do you think that's better than jacking yourself up? Because it's
Because
somebody else?
You're not exactly.
Yeah.
You're not providing the friction.
I see.
There's no like dual signals going on. Like you're trying to ignore your hand.
Yeah. I'm surprised they haven't invented like a mechanical hand.
They have.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's called a fleshlight.
Oh, a fleshlight. Yeah, that's a.
I've thought about.
Oh, yeah, that's a
I've
thing.
thought about it, and you know what has prevented me from ever trying one? The cleanup.
Ew. That's
I don't want to
disgusting.
deal with a machine that I'm humping. You know.
Also, don't you have to hold the flashlight?
Presumably, yeah.
I think the hand, like,
It just said mannequin hand.
yeah, you can like connect it to the wall.
Oh, well, I got a suction cup.
No, like it's plug in, but it's a long cord. So if you're in bed, you don't have to touch it.
I tried to hump numerous times the toilet paper roll, which was always it never worked, but it always called to me because it was a circle.
Okay.
All right.
I don't think I want to know anymore.
Okay. You've got a boundary.
Yeah. Casey Sepp's book on Harper Lee, Furious Hours, Murder, Fraud, and the Last Trial of Harper Lee. Okay, the Tiger Lady, he mentioned this Tiger Lady. He said Tiger Lady or Lion Lady who got all that plastic surgery. Do you remember her?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was Tiger Lady. Jocelyn Wildenstein.
I wonder how much money that costs.
Well, she had a high-profile divorce from billionaire art dealer. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, my God.
And businessman Alec Wildenstein. Cat-like facial appearance. She passed away in December.
She went through all 9 lives.
Wow. She has 2 children.
Oh, okay. Now I'm sorry.
That was a pretty good one. Okay, let's see if it says here. Oh my God, her yearly telephone bill was $60,000 and food and wine cost $547,000.
This is in the divorce settlement.
I guess she received $2.5 billion in the divorce
Oh,
settlement.
my Lord.
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Yeah.
She could own almost all those
But then
paintings.
she went bankrupt.
She went bankrupt. How the fuck did she lose 2.5
Well,
bill?
she had a lot of.
Well, that's not in surgery.
Well, some of it was. In
Maybe
her-
a mill.
Yeah. 3 apartments in Trump Tower were repossessed in 2020.
Oh my God, she ran through $2.5 billion. I don't know. I'm surprised a woman who turned herself into a cat also wasn't great with money, but it still shocks me to lose that much money.
Yeah, she was Swiss.
I'm glad she's Swiss. They need something. You never hear anything bad about the Swiss. They've always been neutral. They've got great chocolate and skiing, great banking.
Yeah,
We need something on them, and this is a start.
that's true. Oh, okay. Did Ted Olson argue the most cases in front of the Supreme Court? So there's like a list from lone dissent of U.S. Supreme Court top advocates. Number 1 is Lawrence G. Wallace, 157 arguments.
Whoa.
Yeah. Then there's number 2 is an unknown advocate.
Okay.
Wants to go by unknown.
What a mensch.
3 is Edwin Needler, 143. 4, Michael Dreeben, 106. 5, Paul Clement, I've heard that name, 92. 6, Carter Phillips, 86. 7, Erwin Griswold, 83. Ted is 13 on this list.
Okay. My claim wasn't that he had argued the most, but I thought he was maybe the most victorious. But I bet some of those names are from like people in the 1800s that were there every other day, back when it was in the basement and it was kind of a joke. Kangaroo court.
I don't know. That's mean again.
I was
Do you ever read like this?
Like you're Stevie Wonder playing the piano? No. He said he passed.
I know.
That really bummed me out.
I know.
I feel very lucky that I had a dinner
felt really
with him.
kind of weird in that moment
You did.
because I knew that was new. Like you were finding out.
Yeah. And I always had this fantasy we would interview him someday because I really, really enjoyed the dinner I had with him.
Yeah. So I felt like.
What'd you feel? Like I should feel
I'm delirious.
stupid? Okay. We've been at this for a while.
Okay.
You don't know how you felt.
I will. No, I just felt up. Like, what if you cried? Like, what if you got really needed to take a break? When that would have been fine, of course. But
No.
yeah, I would
Not
have.
if I need to take a break. We have a guest. We can't invite
Dax,
guests on and
if
then I
you-
go, I need to take a break.
Well, if you find out that I die in the middle of an interview, I hope you take a
that'll mean
break.
I have witnessed you get killed in the middle of the interview. You're never not in
Or
the
have
interview.
a heart attack.
Okay.
Or
I will have to take a break. Yeah, to
Will
start
you?
chest compressions.
or what if my an email comes in with my AIDS test?
Oh boy. We're going to get in hot water this episode. Unairable. Cut it. Dump it.
Dump it.
All right.
All right, that's it.
Love you.
Love you.